the meeting of the Burlington School Committee for
for
June
June
26,
2023.
2023. The
The
public can also access this meeting via the WebEx technology. The Burlington School Committee will hear,
well, actually, the meeting numbers.
So
So
if you need a number and don't have the link, meeting number is 2335 686 9769, and the meeting password is Tuesday. The public can we will hear public comments in person and virtually. The meeting is also being broadcast live on Burlington Cable Access TV, BCAT, and video audio recordings are being made. This meeting of the Burlington School Committee is being held in person at the School Committee Room at Central Office in the Burlington High School building. Members of the public are welcome to attend the meeting in person. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on the agenda should make plans for in-person versus in virtual attendance accordingly. I'm now going to read the equity statement for the Burlington Public Schools. Educational equity means that every child belongs and receives whatever support he, she, they need to develop his, her, their full academic, emotional, and social potential to learn and thrive every day. This begins with kindness and valuing the humanity of every child and individual. We'll now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to make sure okay, that's... The next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes for June 7th, when we held a special session with the 10th grade civics class, and they proposed they gave us information about their project on professional development full days and half days. And thank you to them for that, and I would take a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If Mr. Brooks is in attendance on the WebEx, so does that mean we need to take all our votes
Yes.
roll call? Okay. So Mr. Brooks? Ms. Monaco?
Aye.
Ms. Blonde? Aye. Ms. Massardo?
Aye.
Okay, the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0-0. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes of our meeting on June 13th, 2023.
So moved.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none. Your vote, Mr. Brooks?
Aye.
Ms. Monaco?
Aye.
Ms. Bond? Aye. Ms. Massardo?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, and that's 5-0-0. Thank you. So I will now open up public participation, and I want to mention that if you are interested in participating remotely, please, well, in person as well, please identify yourself. And also remotely, please identify yourself by typing your name on the screen in advance and verbally once you are identified to speak. And we request that you please turn on your camera. Comments and statements are limited to 3 minutes. Okay, is there someone here tonight who would like to speak? Please come on up.
Hi, my name's Jamie Weaver. I moved to Burlington, Massachusetts 5 years ago. When I moved here, I researched the community and the schools. I heard nothing nice about the Burlington Public Schools. I have people in the community that the majority send their kids to private schools. I have one in private, one in public. My daughter loves public. She loves her friends. She loves the Burlington community. Part of what keeps her a part of this community are the sports, the coaches. I've seen Miss Martistrano out supporting the girls' hockey team and out supporting the athletes. It'd be nice to see some other school, and Mr. Brooks, but it would be nice to see some other school committee members out supporting the athletes. We have tennis team that won the state championship that does not have new uniforms. We have the girls' hockey team that made strides and broke numerous records for Burlington High that was barely recognized. Besides the sports, I'm extremely upset about the incidents that occurred at the middle school. The fact that we are national news and it's a year later and we're still being subject to Turtle Boys. I don't know if you guys know the scope, if you've paid attention to what's on social media, if you paid attention to what's on the Burlington Network. It is, I don't understand why we can't get it right. My son went to Malden Catholic. It's a very rich and diverse community. It's a very loving, kind, and accepting community. At his senior prom, we had varieties of everybody, and everybody was included, everybody was loved. Why we can't get this right at the middle school, why it starts and it's toxic, and why we can't vet appropriate candidates to be principals, teachers. My daughter luckily is out of the middle school. I called the principal the first day before she came to Burlington High School because of the experience I had. I tried to say, okay, maybe the experience was because of COVID and it was a tough time and a mental health, but there was a lot of things that went on at the middle school that this administration did not address. Number one, there are some teachers that need to go. They are not discussing teaching my kids reading, science, math. My daughter's in honors English, all honors this year. Math by far was the hardest year for her this year because probably behind a grade and a half level. Not due to COVID, due to other things, but the majority of the time my daughter was in middle school, she is quiet. She's definitely not like me. I would call her the introvert. She stays in her room, she minds her business, and for her to even speak up, it takes a lot. She is an observer. So if she's in a classroom and she sees teachers speaking ill to other students, not being friendly, she's not gonna get up, raise her hand, ask a question. She's not gonna advocate for herself. We ran into this difficulty this year with math. She was challenged at every level. I don't expect my kid to get a trophy. I expect her to work for what she deserves as a grade, and I expect her to work really hard. However,
Excuse me, it's been 3 minutes, so if you could wrap it up. You don't have to just stop there, but if you could
no,
wrap it up.
I will wrap it
Appreciate
up.
Thank you.
But there are deficits in the math department. I've wrote every single person on the school committee. I've written Mr. Conti. I've written the Department of Education. I write, I email, I call. I call everyone. And I will continue to call and I will continue to advocate. But we need to address curriculum. We need math, reading, science. We should be on national news for awards and accolades. We should not be on national news because we have poor leadership and we can't get it right. The administration is responsible and needs to do a better job of vetting candidates, needs to do a better job. We're the only middle school that doesn't have an 8th grade trip to Washington. You have kids drawing SWAT stickers in the bathrooms at middle school, and you don't take them to the Holocaust Museum to actually understand and get the meaning of why they're doing these things. We are in the middle of a mental health crisis, and we're not providing mental health services or different ways of kids advocating, yoga classes, meditation, services. My daughter was in a middle school class where a teacher verbally made in front of a student and bullied a student every single day. This student did not come from a great home. He probably was difficult and challenging in the classroom. He did not have the appropriate resources and proper hygiene. And this teacher in the middle school, I called the principal, reported it. I called the guidance counselor. I called the guidance counselor and report many things. Nothing ever gets addressed.
Thank you for sharing your concerns. And we are available for you. I know we've had emails before, and we will continue. Thank you.
Oh, I'll continue my emails.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, is there anyone else here in person who had a topic they wanted to bring up? Yes, Mr. Campbell?
You left your water.
Yeah. Thank you. liaison.
Hello, Christopher Campbell. I'm a town meeting member. I'm on Ways and Means. I'm a father of 2 future students at Fox Hill. I'm here to speak against the proposed combined mega school of Fox Hill and Pine Glen, specifically to speak that this goes against what our educational programming has been decided for here for the Burlington Public Schools, both in past and a vote in May of 2021, where we agreed to 4 schools, and which most of us here have vowed to uphold going forward on keeping 4 elementary schools. I've listened to many of the community sessions. I've looked at the information. I've even looked at the enrollment in other towns around us. There is no one that is doing this. And that is very concerning, and I'm going to be sharing that information with all of you after this. When we're looking what's best for our students, having 2 schools in 1 school with 700 and plus students is not what's going to be best for any of those students. It is not going to uphold the community, and it is not what this town wants and needs, and especially in that part of town, which is going to greatly impact the traffic, greatly impact how students are going to get to school. It's going to impact the erosion. It's going to impact a lot of the neighbors and the noise. A lot of us have been frustrated with how this information has rolled out, have been concerned on how committee members have been chosen for this committee, would like information on that. But specifically, we need to go back with what's best for our students. And if so quickly we can say a mega school on the Pine Glen property is not what's in best for our educational programming, then we can also say that a mega school is not what's in best for the educational programming of our students, for the culture that they deserve, and what they deserve to learn in an environment where they can have a sense of community that is not combined with another school with one wall that is you can hear over. So when we do look at this educational programming, I would remind us to remember what we voted on in the past as a school committee. What most of us have vowed here is to keep 4 smaller elementary schools, because that's what's in best for all of our students, our staff, and this community. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you have specific questions that you want to send in writing, we can answer specific questions. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone online who has their hand up? If somebody's remote and wants to speak, there we go. There's an appointment. So can you state your name, please? And
is
Melissa.
okay.
Hi, thank you. This is Melissa Giuliani. I've attended several of these calls or meetings over the past 2 months. And in the last meeting, it was noted, that meeting minutes and action items weren't really being kept or distributed. It was also noted that public comment, which we're doing now, is a forum for which the board does not typically respond at the time of public comment, but would come back with a thoughtful answer later. Yet we have seen the same presentation by the Danisco group at every single meeting. Public comments have been asking at every meeting to see a smaller 2-story single school design, which has yet to be presented. So I want to know what this committee is doing to vet all the possible options and ensure that the safety concerns of our children are being upheld. The safety study that was done within 100 feet from the school, these traffic strips were down for a week, and yet what we were presented with was high-level bullets with results that shared, seemed to be 1 day of what those statistics were, likely showing bias because the actual data from a traffic study has yet to be released. With the full traffic study that was there, the strips were down for over a week. We've yet to see that data so the public can see the legitimate concerns around the neighborhood, which should be addressed without bias and without just being glazed over in a 2-bullet presentation. We also asked that the traffic study be expanded, and this has, and yet there has been no further indication or discussion about expanding that traffic study. We wanted an opportunity to do this before school got out for the summer, and that conveniently passed. Will this study be expanded and done in September prior to any decision-making being done to fully evaluate the risks of all the side streets and intersections? Lastly, in the last meeting, the board approved the monthly cost of the Danisco. And again, the same presentation and models have been presented time after time for the past 2 months. And what I'm confused about is, we have yet to see cost estimates with the same design being presented over and over again. So the town people can better assess the impact on their taxes. The argument of cost savings keeps being that protagonist in this story, and we're saving money, but we've yet to see that. And this is a reminder that this is not what the town voted for. This is not what the school committee voted for in 2021. And so why do we continue to have these delays without actual modeling of the 2-story single school option that we've been asking for? Why do we keep seeing 3-story schools for our small children and special needs community to navigate? And why do our questions of public comment continue to get brushed off without being addressed? Because these are the concerns that have been addressed at every single public comment. And I have yet to see a response to these exact concerns.
Have you wrapped up? Is that? Yes, thank you very much for bringing your concerns. Thank you. Is there someone else in person who has a comment that they would like to make, or a question? Okay. Is there anyone else with their hand up online? No. Okay, thank you for...
There's a hand.
Oh, she didn't put it down. It's Melissa. Okay. Okay.
Okay, there, it went down. Yep. Thank you, Melissa.
Hi,
Okay. We got someone else.
I'm having trouble raising my.
Is there someone else there, Bob, or is that Melissa speaking? Can't quite tell.
It's not Melissa,
Yeah,
it's somebody else. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so.
Hi. I just want to make a comment. I'm having trouble with my video.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Yep, this is Deirdre Heisler.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now I can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I wanted to discuss the impact of a large school, combined school, on the education of our youngest students in Burlington. As Mrs. Nisko has stated in our prior meeting, it's all about the students. And I ask you to remember the students in this decision as we focus on the educational plan and the school requirements. Large schools tend to be personalized and rule-governed organizations, while small schools are more close-knit and flexible communities. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Where no one is a stranger. So that's according to Educational Research Organization. Burlington's a small town, and a large elementary school is out of character and unfitting for our community. We are not a Springfield or a Boston with populations of 165,000 or 650,000. We're a town of 25,000 people. Why would cramming all of our students into a giant school be considered the preferred option when we have the ability to maintain optimal and beneficial small elementary schools, which, according to WestEd research, foster strong personal bonds, parent and community involvement, and improved instructional quality? A more human scale is a potent antidote to student alienation. Interpersonal and big school environments, according to research, can provoke disruptive behavior, while small schools diffuse it through trust and respect. We are asking too much of our elementary school students to belong to a giant school that is simply out of place in a small neighborhood community. This town has a strong commitment to education, and we will be making decisions that will forever change or preserve our educational system that our town is familiar with today. This is a decision that goes far beyond the walls of the room. 2 years ago, there was, as Melissa had mentioned, a unanimous vote by the school committee to eliminate the consolidation option. The reasoning was summed up by the following 6 points. First, concerns about size of a combined school. Second, concerns about traffic. Third, a large school is not conducive to a sound educational program. Fourth, the public input was in favor of a 4 elementary school model. Fifth, the plan would not work logistically. And sixth, there are only 2 roads into Fox Hill. My question to the school committee is how 2 years after the vote was passed to eliminate the consolidated school option, it seems to have become a top option. I understand that as a result of MSBA funding, we need to entertain the combined school option, but it doesn't mean that we have to accept it. The concerns that led to the vote to eliminate the consolidation option 2 years ago remain the same today. Can you please help me understand how this option is still viable considering the previous concerns? I ask you to remember your pledge to this town and to continue to support Pine Glen and Fox Hill at their current sites and as completely separate entities as you reject the oversized school. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
your
your,
concerns, for sharing that. Okay. I hear there's another hand raised online. Who is it?
Katrina.
Okay.
Katrina,
Katrina?
if you want to speak, and if you could share your last name as well.
Yeah, it's Katrina Boschetti. I've spoken at a few of these and have been attending a bunch of these meetings. I just wanted to comment today and just kind of base. I'm usually mostly all about the whole safety and like against the 3-level school, of course. And I do live in the Fox Hill neighborhood, so of course I'm for the traffic as well. But I do want to say that Burlington, since I have been little and lived here my whole life, has prided itself on listening to its community members. And since this whole start, we haven't heard once from a community member who is all in and all for this mega school. So when you guys keep telling us that no decision has been made yet, it's really not confidence. There's no confidence in that statement, because there's nothing like, we understand, we hear the community, we want to do what the community wants, and we feel you, and we're going to go with the one school option and like the 4 school option instead of the mega school. But we're not hearing that from you guys. And it seems like you guys have already had your minds made up. And I know that you keep saying that you don't, but there's no confidence there. And when the community cannot have confidence in their school committee, then I don't know where we're at here. And I really need you guys to listen to the Burlington community, because I feel like if you vote one way, you're going to fail us all. And I really need you guys to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Is there anyone else here or online who has their hands up? Okay. Is that everybody that you can see also? All right. So moving on to the next topic, we have the subcommittee reports, and the first item is the Fox Hill School Building Committee update, with a second reading for both the educational programs review and the space summaries view. Dr. Conti, did you want to say something or before we begin, or no?
Again, this is part of the study process. We have our experts here, so you can sort of know what part of the pattern this is. I just want to make sure that I stress this is not a selection as to the final school configuration. This is part of the MSBA process that we're required to do in order to have access to state funding for whatever project moves forward. And again, I think that's what the second reading is, and hopefully you've had a chance to review the programmatic documents. And as I tried to state at the school building committee meetings, what's I think a critical part of the process is making sure that we are conveying what our elementary program is accurately to the state. So that's what essentially, I don't want to oversimplify it, but that's what these documents do. So
Okay.
my suggestion, Madam Chair, is maybe invite up.
Yes. So I'd like to invite up Donna Danisco, our designer, and Steve Brown from our owner's project manager. I do want to introduce them. I know there's many people who have said otherwise, but none of the options have been chosen yet. What we're doing tonight is not choosing an option. What we're doing tonight is we are looking at our educational program. And we, by having, there are 2 educational program documents that are being listed tonight. And one of them is for the program if we choose the one enrollment, which is the single school enrollment. And the other is the educational program if we choose the 640 school enrollment. If we look at those two, if we don't look at those two, we do need to send our educational program to the MSBA in order for them to approve or not approve any option. And we are required to look at the 640 student school in order to move forward with the MSBA process. If we had at some point, we haven't made a decision to not use MSBA, so we need to move forward with both of these enrollment programs. We also need to look at the space summaries because what the space summaries say is if we have this educational program, this is the amount of space that we're going to need, whether it's for nurses' offices or for special education classrooms or just a regular classroom, which the state does say that you need more space than we have already at Fox Hill and at Pine Glen. So they are saying we do want you to provide a better educational program in the appropriate amount of space. So I'm going to ask Ms. Donna Danisco if she would comment any further on the two documents. We have had time to look at them, and what we're looking for tonight is to support or not support the educational program and the space requirement summaries that we will be bringing to the MSBA.
Good evening. Nice to see everyone again. Thanks for having us. Steve Brown is with me as well. But Madam Chair, yeah, that's exactly, it's the first process as we start looking at and evaluating the two enrollment options as required by MSBA. So the first option, the first step in the study is to fully understand the educational program and the space requirements to support those programs. There's no decision, it's just a requirement of MSBA because we have a dual enrollment contract with them, right? So we have to look at both enrollments. Whichever enrollment is selected, we still will need to provide one of the options for the alternative enrollment as we move forward for cost comparison purposes. It's just a requirement. Mm-hmm. At the end of the preferred schematic report, at the end of the study, which will be in December, we will only submit one of these refined based upon the evolution of the process. So this is really just no formal vote needs to occur. It's just an approval or support of the educational program as you provide for your elementary school students. And when you read through it, you'll see it's really driven by the programs you have, the delivery of those programs, and then the space requirements to support those programs. So that's what we're here for this evening. Steve, did you want to?
No, nothing formal. I didn't prepare any comments. It's really just here to offer support if you have questions. But Donna's spot on, part of the agreement of the feasibility study was to go through this process. So we're here for the town of Burlington first to support everything you need, but also make sure that we're playing by MSBA's rules as well.
So we have had time to look at those documents. So if somebody has any comments or questions, I found one sort of typographical error that I let Ms. Danisco know about. Does anyone else have a question or a comment about the documents? Yes, Ms. Monaco.
I actually have quite a few comments, but I want to start out with something simple. Donna, I don't think that I don't like muddy waters, and I don't think that we can reasonably understand the position of the members of this committee without a vote. So I would like to make a motion to approve the educational plan and what was the other wording, space
Summary.
and space summary for the 325 student Fox Hill School.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the discussion is still now. We have a motion on the table. So what are the comments about the educational program that is being proposed? I know Dr. Conti and a whole lot of his staff spent a lot of time Dr. Conti and his staff spent a lot of time trying to document and explain what the educational program is here, to make sure that whatever new building that we build will be able to meet the needs of our students in our educational program. So if we take, my mic was off, but there's a motion on the floor to approve the educational program and space summaries for the school enrollment of 325. And so, Mr. Brooks, if you wanted to make a comment.
Through the chair, yeah. So again, my understanding is through the process, we have to, because of our contract, look at both options. So if we vote to approve just the 325, then Ms. Monaco, I'd ask you to change your motion to then refuse MSBA money, because that is what we'd be doing essentially by making that vote.
Procedurally, I think we could vote to approve the 325 enrollment, and then we could accept a motion to approve the 640 enrollment as well. So does that make sense to everyone, that we could do it that way?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to comment on the educational program at this moment? I mean, I can get back to you, but did you have other comments?
Right now? No. Mr. Brooks? No. Not right now. Okay.
No further comment.
Okay. Are there questions or comments about the educational program that's written up in this document?
It's a great job.
Okay. I think that it is a great program that we have. I'm really delighted that we can propose it. Are there any other comments before we vote? No. Okay, so again, my comment is that I think that it's really important that we support both enrollments in order to go forward to MSBA, so that we can continue to look at the various options. One of the things that got mentioned earlier tonight, we are going to be looking at some of the cost estimates at the school building committee meeting. That's not the role of the school committee right now, but the school building committee meeting, which is on Wednesday, the 28th, there will be a beginning presentation and information about costs. So again, I would like to be sure that it's not just about costs, but that we look at all of our options, and if we support one, I am hoping we'll be supporting both options tonight is what I'm hoping will happen. Are there other comments that anyone would like to make? Okay, so I'm going to take a vote now in favor of the motion on the floor. Ms. Monaco?
Aye.
Ms. Bond? Aye. Ms. Massardo?
Aye.
Mr. Brooks?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so that's 500 in support of the educational program and space summary for the enrollment of 325. Okay?
Chairman, I have a point of order.
Okay.
So I have concerns, as you all know, about going forward with the 640-student school. And I had questions that I broached to Eric last Friday, and he contacted Darren. And Darren contacted me this afternoon, and I am going to proceed the way Darren told me to proceed, which is to begin by reading from the minutes of May 25th, 2021. And the topic is the Fox Hill Building Project. Dr. Conti, Ms. Kasha, and Mr. Cuna are meeting weekly to ensure tasks for the MSBA timeline are being addressed. A lot of the initial work is documentation and signing, and the project officially kicks off June 1. Dr. Conti stated that initially he was in favor of exploring if the Fox Hill and Pine Glen schools could be consolidated. However, he explained his job is to advise the committee educationally And he doesn't recommend an 800 to 900 student elementary school. The best educational model would be to maintain 4 elementary schools. Mr. Cuna explained the phone discussion he'd had with the MSBA regarding the question of possibly consolidating the Fox Hill and Pine Glen schools into the currently approved Fox Hill project. Brittany Gomes, our MSBA coordinator, said, and I quote, "You can choose to consolidate the 2 schools, but you don't have to. If the committee decides not to consolidate now, the project is just Fox Hill, and that will be the focus. There is a second time that the committee can choose to say no to consolidation, and that would be during the enrollment and feasibility study module around February of 2022. Ms. Simon further explained the committee has had discussions about this possibility, but had concerns about the size of a combined school, traffic. Such a large school is not conducive to a sound educational program, and there was a lot of public input with the majority in favor of keeping the 4 elementary school model. Mrs. Monaco commented that she feels very strongly we should replace the Fox Hill School and then replace or renovate the Pine Glen. She feels the waters are being muddied by entertaining the option of consolidating the 2 schools. It will create a lot more questions and anxieties. Chairman Murphy brought up a previous idea to combine the 2 schools on the Fox Hill lot, but that there would be 2 separate buildings with a walkway to combine them. He stated this would not work logistically, and there are only 2 roads into the Fox Hill property. It was moved by Ms. Simon and seconded by Mrs. Monaco to eliminate the consolidation option as we move forward with MSBA and go forward with the Fox Hill School project. The motion carried 5-0-0. Now, there's been a lot of talk about these minutes, and I wanted to read them and get them out in the public. And so what I said to Darren is, do we need to rescind that motion if we're going to vote to go forward and send on an education plan and a space study, whatever? And he said, well, that would be the cleanest way to do it, to have someone make a motion to rescind the vote of May 25th, 2021. But he said you don't have to. He said if you approve, as we just did the smaller school, if you approve the same things, the education plan and the space needs for the largest school, it is exactly the same thing as rescinding your earlier vote. And he asked me to emphasize that if one of us votes for that motion, we are, in essence, rescinding our vote from May 25th, 2021. So the chairman now has to decide whether she wants to take a vote to rescind, or a vote to go forward, or a vote to reject. But the bottom line is, if we vote, I understand you have to present it to SBA, even if we vote against it, and that's fine. But if you vote for it, it is a vote to rescind what you voted on in May of 2021. And I understand Jeremy was not part of the committee and Melissa was not part of the committee, but there are 3 of us who did vote unanimously with 2 other people for that, and I just want it to be very clear what we're doing.
Okay, well, I feel like that's, it would have been much better if you had explained that before we took a vote, because I explained that we would be voting on both before, that we could vote on both before, and you had information that you believe means that the vote we took just now means something different from what I thought it meant. So I wish
The one we already took,
No,
the one
the
we're
one-
about to take.
Well, the way you explained it, it sounded like we'd already
No,
changed
no,
a decision.
that is not the
Okay,
case. The vote we already took was for the smallest school.
right. Okay, so I this is an issue that's been going back and forth. I did vote twice to support the four-school model. I had hoped that we could get further along in the process before talking about this, but I'm going to take this moment to explain how I am now considering voting to support a 640-student school. I'm not decided on it. I don't have enough information, but I have a lot more information than I did when I made that vote in May of 2021. I have very different information. I had a lot of concerns, as you just quoted me. Those are real concerns, and I know there's a lot of people who still have many of those concerns. Some of those concerns I don't have so much anymore, and some of those concerns I still have. And I'm looking to hear, as we move forward with our professional architects and engineers and project managers, to find out, are those concerns things that are insurmountable or not insurmountable, and those kinds of things. So I have voted twice to retain the four-school model for elementary schools. I still prefer a four-school model. And since my last vote, which was in May of 21, I've been investigating, I've been learning a lot about our options, and if there are solutions to our concerns, my concerns, and I think some other people's concerns. Although the MSBA originally only offered to partner with us with a three-school model, and that was after we took that vote. So we thought we could choose to only go forward with a four-school model, and they told us no, that wasn't an option. So my vote in May of 21 was altered in terms of my thinking process. Well, let's consider it. I felt it was my responsibility as an elected official who's responsible for the education of our students and also responsible for making a financially responsible decision to consider options that would earn us financial support from the MSBA. We can discuss what percent it is, but it's still a lot of millions. If in the end the MSBA could not support our preferences, Burlington as a town would have to decide if we are willing to pay more for our local preferences. In addition, if the MSBA is willing to financially support replacing 2 of our elementary schools, which I did not even think about initially, I feel the need to consider that option, to optimize the equity between our schools and to optimize the quality of the school programming that can be produced in a school that's a modern building compared to, as we know, the old buildings at both Fox Hill and at Pine Glen. If we choose one of the options to only replace or repair the Fox Hill School, then equity between the schools would drastically increase, leaving Pine Glen in the worst condition with a likelihood of waiting 10 to 15 years to be replaced. 15 years is 3 generations of elementary school children. I take that very, very seriously. Knowing that we also need to renovate or replace the Burlington High School, that will not, in my opinion, I know some people are still optimistic, but I don't believe that the state is going to help us finance that. I am aware that the town has to make some very difficult decisions regarding our debt schedule and our tax levy. Although these are not topics that we've talked about yet in the school building committee, I'm aware of them. I think everybody here is aware of them. I think everybody knows that those are issues we're going to have to address. Dr. Conti's been optimistic that the state may agree to support us financially in the future. However, I believe that hope encouraged us to wait and wait for 10 years, and now I believe we need to move forward with the Burlington High School project now, as we have begun, and the town meeting is supporting the feasibility study. I also think that, the reason I still support four-school model is for all the reasons that I've heard many, many people say, that a small school has a lot of, I believe, educational advantages, and the feeling of community is, I think, a real important piece. And I didn't know when I voted in May of 21 that there might be a way to create a 2 schools on one site option, which I'm calling the Butterfly School. I feel like that's an option that is very important for me in my decision-making to be considering. Pine Glen is a wonderful community, of a school community. The Fox Hill is a wonderful school community, and they both want to keep those identities. And I believe that's possible with some of the options. Okay, so I don't disagree with the concerns people have about educational, students knowing each other, all the staff knowing each other. Those are all things that are important to me and to me as a decision maker. I also feel like we haven't yet had a chance to talk. Let me finish. Since we began working with our owner's project manager, Doran Whittier, and our designer, Danisco Design, I have learned a lot about options that I did not know about in May of 2021 because we had not yet hired these people to help us go through this process. In fact, I do remember, Mrs. Monaco, that you told us repeatedly that we needed to hire a really good project manager who could help us make these decisions, and they would know a lot about this. And so I respect what they have shared with us, what they've uncovered, and what they've learned, what I have learned from working with them. I don't have a final decision yet, but I am considering these. Some of my earlier concerns have been alleviated, and when I learned about the butterfly school model, it would allow us to keep our 4-school model with 2 separate elementary schools, each with their own identity and their own facility, sharing only the gym and the cafetorium, which is a cafeteria and an auditorium for people who don't know that word. This would allow us to use MSBA money to replace our 2 oldest elementary schools and not have to wait 15 years to replace the Pine Glen. So we currently have more than 8 options, all but one of which are 4-school options. As an elected official, I also feel obligated to consider many factors. Primary is educational programs for our students. Another is financial, but not the only one or necessarily the top one. But finding out what the financial options are is something that we actually are going to get to this week. But this has gotten brought up, so I wasn't going to bring it up yet. I was not planning to say all this tonight, but I think this is important context for the decisions that we're making. So primary is educational programs, another consideration is financial, and another is space needs in the school district. So how do we make sure we have the needs we will need? We're talking about buildings that will perhaps last us, I hope, for 50 years. So this project will cost the town millions of dollars, and it could involve a contribution of millions of dollars of state money. I want to explore how to best take advantage of that money while keeping our educational needs as a priority. I'm not certain how much support we have in town to pay for the cost of building 2 or 3 new schools, Fox Hill, Pine Glen, the high school, without an MSBA contribution. I'm aware that there are other financial and building needs in town that I'm not responsible for because I'm on the school committee, so I'm not responsible for them, but I know there are other capital building projects in town. I also know that this building project, whether we build a 325 enrollment school or whether we build a 640 enrollment school, will affect every person and every family and every child in Burlington. This will not affect just the students and the families at Fox Hill. This will affect not just the students and the families at Pine Glen. As somebody in an email to us last week pointed out, 640 students is not as many students as we have right now at Fox Hill and at Pine Glen. There's about 100 students that are likely to be needing to find a space. We will need to redistrict. All of the elementary schools in Burlington will be affected by this building project, whatever we do, whether we go with one school or whether we go with whether we go with the 325 enrollment or the 640 enrollment. Every child in the elementary schools, every family in the Burlington Public Schools will be affected, and it's going to cost the town money. So every resident and taxpayer it will affect as well. So I feel the need to consider that in addition to considering the concerns of people in the neighborhood, which are real. Those are real concerns. The concerns of people at Pine Glen and at Fox Hill who are concerned about the small school feeling. Those are all important issues, and I feel like I need to consider all of those other things. Regarding future space needs of the school district, to me that also is a consideration. If we are able to use, and these are speculations, but when the Wildwood School was closed down and was unable to be reused, we were able to create a wonderful park, the Wildwood Park over there. And we used some state money, and we made it so that we can never, ever, ever use that property for a school building. There are no other places in Burlington to build school properties. As we're discovering on the town side, trying to find out where could we build a new police station or whatever. When I heard that there's a butterfly school option where we could keep our 4-school option in one spot, I thought, wow, this would give us an opportunity to have future school needs. There may be universal pre-K coming. There may be needs for other special needs programs coming that we don't yet know about. We definitely could use swing space, which we don't have for building a new Fox Hill and or Pine Glen. And for people who aren't familiar with swing space, it means that you can, like when we redo the high school, we have to empty out one end of a school and put all those people somewhere else, like central office has to go somewhere. Maybe we could find somewhere, but if we had an empty lot or an unused building, we could perhaps move there, tear down this part of the building, build the new wing for the new Burlington High School or the renovation, and then we could, I don't know how to do it, but I've actually worked in 2 or 3 school districts where they have swing space. So they move one section and then they build there, and they move kids into the new section. And so that's what I mean by swing space. So here's an opportunity. Maybe we could do our high school project without that and other projects without that, but I'm guessing it would cost a lot more money if we didn't have a swing space. So again, it's a consideration that I have been thinking about. I wasn't planning to make this grand statement tonight, but people keep raising issues that we haven't really had a chance to investigate. And as Mrs. Monaco said, I have voted twice for a 4-school model, but I have new information. I have new perspectives that I'm considering all of the options, including the people who have come repeatedly to our meetings, whether it's school committee meeting like tonight or the school building committee meeting. I hear those concerns, and many of those are things that I believe might be mitigated. So the future needs, if we could use it for a swing space while building the Burlington High School project, or for future universal pre-K, or for other educational needs that we can't imagine right now. Before I was, I already told you about before I was on the school committee, the Wildwood site is no longer there. There are no other spaces in town to build schools, and I think it is crucial that the school committee preserve all of our school sites for future needs. So again, I hear people talking. If we do the 640 enrollment at the Fox Hill site or at the Pine Glen site, then somehow that property would be given away. I would not vote for that as a school committee member. I'm only one vote. Excuse me. I am only one vote, but these are all of the considerations that I've had. So yes, I have definitely said all the things that Ms. Monaco just mentioned. And I am prepared tonight, if I can get a motion on the floor, to vote to support the educational program and the space needs for 640 student enrollment. I am the chair, so I can't put that motion on the table.
Can I speak?
Ms. Marsardo, yeah.
Thank you, Martha. I think you addressed so many points that I think we have yet to make very, very clear. One thing I would like to address from those minutes is that the school, I think from the minutes, the number is 800.
Yeah.
The number on the table right now is 640. I have talked to Dr. Conti, And he has assured me, I've seen the educational programming, that the education that he will provide in that school will be just as high quality as in a 325 student school. I'm very confident in that. Like Martha said, none of the options on the table are less than 4 schools. I also would love to see a new Fox Hill and Pine Glen at the same time. I think the entire town would like to see that. I've heard, we hear you on the phone. We hear that there is traffic concerns. You have seen me in the yellow vest at Fox Hill day after day. I am working on those traffic issues. It's not a new issue. It's there now, and I will fix it. 2, we've heard from many of the surrounding neighbors of Fox Hill parents. What I haven't heard yet is from taxpayers, and that's what makes me nervous. And that's why I cannot take this off the table. In November, I think a $75 tax was proposed and voted down in this community. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year in taxes for 3 buildings. I would love to say that everyone in this town would support that. I think maybe many of the Fox Hill and Pine Glen families would support that. But at some point, the entire town is going to need to make a decision and perhaps even a vote to build this new high school, renovate the high school, to build 2 new elementary schools. I have not yet heard that the town is willing to support that tax increase. And you can think that I have made up my mind. I have not made up my mind. I have yet to see the cost numbers that we are literally going to show you on Wednesday. So I do not think it is fair to pull this off the table 2 days before we are going to get the largest piece of information we've been looking for on this feasibility study yet. Somebody just asked, why haven't we seen numbers? We've sent them to the cost estimators. They're coming on Wednesday. This is the school committee. The numbers are being presented to the school building committee on Wednesday. And I think that is certainly not the number one. I hear that the educational program is the number one. The educational needs of our students are the absolute number one. And I fully agree there. But I can't pretend that I have the money tree in my backyard. I move that we approve the Fox Hill and Pine Glen educational program for 640 students.
And the space
And the space summary.
summary. Do we have a second for that motion?
Madam Chair, I just have
Miss-
to comment.
Mi-
I'd like
Mr.
to second that motion.
Okay.
This was brought
Ca-
up at the
ca-
11th hour, and I have serious concerns about the contractual ramifications of only having one option presented to MSBA. Ms. Monaco, I appreciate your concern, but I am very concerned that if we do this in the manner which you propose, we could lose millions of dollars in the process. So I'll second this motion.
Okay. So,
Mr. Brooks, did you have other comments you wanted to make on that motion? Or,
otherwise?
Nope, I've made my comments. Like I said, I believe we'll have serious contractual ramifications since we've entered a contract with the MSBA, and doing this in the manner which is proposed, I feel is a little too cavalier for my taste.
And Mrs. Monaco?
Very briefly, I just want to mention a few things that you mentioned. So the high school is going to take a long time to figure out. We're beginning that process, but it's going to take a long time before we figure that out. And I have already brought up at this committee my request that we do a feasibility study next May for Pine Glen School. So I want to take issue with your 10 to 15 years. That is simply not realistic in my opinion. The OPM, I told Melissa at the very beginning to hire an OPM that she could really trust because they do so much of the work and we count on them to protect us. They're the owner's project manager, and without a good OPM, we're screwed. So I'm sure she did that. She was looking for a great OPM. Personally, I never considered the combined school because we voted in May of 2021 not to do that. And so when I kept getting phone calls and text messages from people saying it sounds like they're looking at a combined school, my response was, they're not. We're not doing that. It was already voted. It's a fait accompli. We are not doing a combined school. Only to find out, much to my surprise, that in fact, a combined school was being seriously considered, but not by me. And also, you mentioned that you didn't know about the Butterfly School. Tom Murphy, in what I read, specifically mentioned that school and that it would not work, especially because there are only 2 roads going into that site. The swing space is a myth, because what happened to Wildwood School would happen to Pine Glen School. The school department would not have the money to keep it up. We can't maintain and fund in our budget a building that we don't have kids in. And if we combine the schools, Pine Glen, maybe we'd want to keep it, maybe we'd try to get that money, but realistically, I believe it would end up going to the town and being used for something else. So those are my pushback comments on what you said, and that's all I have to say.
Okay. Ms. Bond, do you have a comment?
Well, again, my comments to us is questioning where your 15 years came from for Pine Glen. And then also, although I realize many people felt it was premature for John Eiler to come and speak at the school committee meeting and talk about the potential increase in taxes, I felt like it was important for him to bring that up at that point, even though we don't have the final numbers for the reason a lot of people are bringing up now. We don't know if we have the support of the taxpayers. So he was trying to show that there's not really that big of a difference that will occur from the research that he did, and believe me, he does his research, based on schools that were built recently within Massachusetts with MSBA support, that the difference between one school versus the 2 larger schools, tax-wise, was going to be up $58 a year. So I think he was trying to put in perspective that, you know, for people who are concerned about building the large school versus a small school and smaller school, the 325 versus the 640, you know, what it really means for the taxpayer in their pockets. So again, I personally, you know, I understand we have to consider the 640, but I agree with Ms. Monaco. I don't feel comfortable voting on moving forward with that plan.
Okay. Does anyone else have a comment on the motion on the table? Okay, I'm sorry. I did want to say one more thing, which is I wanted to clarify that Ms. Massardo did not choose the OPM.
No,
We had an OPM selection committee, and I think there were 8 people on it. I was one of the people, so it was not Ms. Massardo's selection. Ms. Massardo is the chair of the committee, and she works very closely with the OPM, but it was not her selection. So I just wanted to clarify that for everybody. Okay? Ms. Bond?
I also wanted to add that I did very strongly suggest that the chair, John Eiler, be able to attend our school commit, our Fox Hill meeting, and he was turned down and was not invited to attend, and I felt that was really a mistake. I felt like he should have been allowed to come and speak at that meeting, and I feel like it's important for him to attend those meetings as a Ways and Means member. He should be able to listen in and speak freely. So I just wanted to get that on the record, too.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Brooks?
So I'm going to rebut a couple of the points that were just brought up. Yes, while Mr. Aller did a thorough job, I believe his math was based on a school that was made for a cost-cutting endeavor. Also, too, he did not represent himself as an official Ways and Means member. The document he produced was produced with 3 members of the committee, not voted on by the committee. Furthermore, again, I believe we'll have serious contractual obligations, or excuse me, ramifications if we move forward with this plan. Finally, we have been trying to get high school done for about 13 years at this point, and it has been unsuccessful. So please tell me how we're going to do this in less than 10 years. We've been unsuccessful for 13 at this point. If you have a magic wand, please, by all means, let me know.
Okay, Ms. Marble?
2 points.
Burlington
High school is going to require a debt exclusion. There's
exclusion.
absolutely no question. It's way too much money. So that's how that's going to be done. I would like to ask Donna about Jeremy's point that we have a contractual problem. If you go to SBA with one unanimously passed ed plan and space, whatever, and one that is not unanimous, or one that is even rejected, for instance, let's say it loses its vote. Do we have a contractual problem with MSBA?
Ms. Danisco?
Yep, thank you. So first, I would just like to point out that the district has signed an enrollment agreement with the MSBA to evaluate 325 and 640 students. And as such, as part of the process, and we've been just trying to make that clear since we've come on board, that we are required to look at 325 students and 640 students. You do not, MSBA will not care if you pick 325 or 640. They're in agreement, right? As long as you pick one, you can't pick a number in the middle, right? So as part of the preliminary design program, MSBA is wanting an educational program, or two in this case because you have 2 enrollments, that identify the programs that will be in both schools and then the spaces to support both schools. If the school committee chooses not to support, because MSBA really doesn't need a vote from the school committee, it really is just to support the educational programs. During the preliminary design program, we would still need to submit it and state that the school committee is not in full support of, or is not in support of the program. But we still need to submit it because they need to understand the space requirements needed to support a 640-student school. We will carry, and we're required to carry, both options through the end of preferred schematic. You can pick one if we're saying 325 is a definite, but we still maybe are considering 640, but we want to put our efforts into the 325 student enrollment model, that we still will be required to submit one option for 640 students through preferred schematic report. It's for comparison purposes, it's for transparency, and just to support the both enrollment options. So we would submit it with the statement in the introduction stating that the school committee has not supported the educational program, and that's fine. What is really going to be meaningful is at preferred schematic report when you select your preferred solution. So does that help you?
That's exactly what I thought. And so if this is a split vote, will that be reported along with what you submit?
We could certainly state in the introduction and in this section for the educational program that there was not a full or unanimous support of the school committee.
All right, thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments on the motion on the table?
Madam Chair, just one more question.
Yes. Yes.
Does this in any way jeopardize the MSBA money by doing that? While I understand it's possible, does it jeopardize the money is my question.
To the best of my knowledge, no. Ideally, the educational program is not stating, the educational program, if you go through it, really
is stating the educational programs that you provide for your elementary school students and the space needs required for those educational programs. That truly is what is before you this evening. And it's should not be really a matter of, is it 325 students or 640 students? That is dictated by the enrollment that we've all agreed to study with the MSBA. So, Mr. Brooks, to answer your question, I do not believe that you're in jeopardy of any financial ramifications with the MSBA. The preferred solution in December will need to accompany one of these documents. So just whichever, and we're hearing you very loud and clear, I have to stay totally independent on this, but whichever solution it is, we will then have to submit that educational program with the final space summary. Does that help? Does that clarify that?
Question on that?
Yep, thank you. That helps me.
Okay.
All right,
All
are
right,
there any other questions about taking a vote on the 640 enrollment educational program and space summary needs? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Brooks?
Aye.
Ms. Monaco?
No.
Ms. Bond?
No.
Ms. Massardo?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. That's 3-0. And the motion passes. Thank you. So obviously, we will have lots more discussions about this, and I hope people who are interested in further conversation will listen in on Wednesday to the school building committee, where we will be getting a first look at the cost estimates. We're glad that we're moving forward in that direction.
Yep.
Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Brown or Ms. Diznisco? No.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Look
you for
forward to
coming
seeing
and
everyone
answering
on
our
Wednesday.
questions, too.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Moore, in Ways and Means is the next item on the agenda.
Not anything to report. Sorry about that. I do not have anything to report today.
Thank you.
Are there other announcements? Well, actually, are there other subcommittees that have met since our last meeting? No? Ms. Massardo?
I don't have it's transportation related, it's not subcommittee related.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Bob and I met at Fox Hill last week. Fox Hill was the recipient of a Safe Routes to School Signs and Lines Award for 2023. So the signs and lines have been added and are up. The Safe Routes to School liaison was there to take pictures. She awarded us with the bronze level. Burlington, bronze is not the bottom. Basic is the bottom. So we received a bronze award. And also, I have recruited a few other parents to join me in a Safe Routes to School task force. So we're working over the summer with Safe Routes to School, with the Burlington Police Department, and the new vice principal at Fox Hill and the principal at Fox Hill to work on the traffic issues that have been brought up throughout this project to hopefully reduce some of the traffic and make some traffic improvements for the, for the current students.
Mr. Cunha, did you have something to add to that? No? Mr. Moore?
I would like to thank the school committee and Ms. Massardo for following up with the Safe Routes to School. I think this is a very important program, and I'm glad to see that we finally made some progress in getting our students alternative ways to walking to school that are also healthy and also from a physical perspective and a mental perspective. So thank you.
Yes, I want to thank all of the people who've been working on the Safe Routes to School with you, Ms. Massardo, because that is a really important thing, and it takes a lot of public attention. And I see there's a hand raised. Oh, is that Mr. Brooks or somebody else,
Yeah,
Mr.
it
Cunha?
is.
Okay, Mr. Brooks? Yes.
Yes.
Apologies, I left my hand raised from the last comment.
It was from before, okay. All right, Ms. Monaco?
I noticed the signs on Fox Hill and Westwood, and I think they're great. It's a track.
It's a big accomplishment, yeah. And while we're on transportation, I just want to encourage, I know Ms. Kasha isn't here tonight, but I'm hoping that, oh, are you on the line? I mean, I hope, is this later in the meeting about putting out an RFP? No, that's the other thing. No, about starting I think Mr. Cuna and possibly our transportation subcommittee was maybe going to start having some conversations about how do we proceed looking for a new bus contract. Is that still in the works? Great. Thank you. Mr. Cuna is shaking his head yes for people who are just listening and can't see. So thank you for that. Are there other subcommittees? Are there other announcements? I do have an announcement. I'm sorry Ms. Weber isn't here anymore, but I did want to make a very big announcement because our girls softball team won the Division II state softball championship. Really awesome. They've won 13 Middlesex League championships, and now they have I want to congratulate them all for winning that. I also know that we had I got a report because I know we had a lot of teams that did really well, and we won the Middlesex League in 7 out of 9 sports this spring, which is really awesome. And we also got to the round of 16 with the boys lacrosse, to the round of 8 with the girls lacrosse. The outdoor boys track are Division IV state champions also, and I know the track teams, and the girls' track was a finalist in Division IV. I know the track, Mr. Nelson used to always report on the track teams. He had an inside scoop on that. But we had a wonderful spring season, and our sports teams have done really well. And I think what I've seen, and I was able to attend, I went to a volleyball game this spring, I went to a couple of softball games, and I went to a couple of the unified basketball games. And I see such cheerfulness and good exercise and a lot of teamwork and team spirit, and the kids having fun and doing a great job. And I'm just so delighted. We have a lot of teams, we have a lot of coaches that we budget for, and we appreciate that the town supports our budget so that we can provide these kinds of activities for our students. So I did want to announce all of our champions on that level. So, Dr. Conti, I'm going to turn it over to you under Learning, Equity, and Thriving, the school committee meeting dates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was asked that we look at our April dates again because of Eid al-Fitr and Passover. My understanding is the Eid date isn't final yet because the moon cycle isn't final yet, and the celebrations tend to occur during the day. So I was advised the school committee meeting could remain on that evening. And so then our suggestion is to keep the April 9th meeting, but to move the school committee meeting from the 23rd to the 30th of April. And that would avoid Passover on the 23rd. So again, I'm not sure I require a vote, but just wanted to inform the committee that that was the adjustment in April. So again, the April 9th meeting is staying, and then we would move the 23rd to the 30th. We only have 3. We're lucky the 30th fits in on a Tuesday because of April break, so we can sneak that one in.
Okay, are there any other comments? So we have a proposed and a schedule for the school committee for next year. Thank you for looking into that, Dr. Conti. All right, the next item is the MASC policies, section E and F.
Okay. Again, thank you, Madam Chair. I know policy work is policy work, but it's important we continue to make progress. These are the next 2 sections. You all have had a copy of my notes, which I'll just go through very quickly. And this is a first reading, so don't require a vote at this time. So the section E is it again is the safety program, and so I'm just going to step through the policies unless the committee has any other concerns. So again, policy EB is the first policy in the section, and that's just basically broadly lays out the goals of this section. And I'm recommending the MASC language because there was no Burlington language. So that is EB. EBAB is the pest management policy. And again, this policy summarizes the law regarding the use of pesticides on school property. So recommending the MASC policy.
Excuse me, I have a question on that.
Uh-huh.
I didn't, so was the one we had significantly different or not? I was not completely sure on that one.
I can review the one that we had. I just typically, if they're similar, I would pick the local policy. So I think they were significantly different.
Okay. And this one is recommended? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
EBAD, Madam Chair, this sort of goes to your point, utilizing artificial turf in the heat. This was a very important topic to a prior school committee, and so we're going to keep the Burlington policy of the EBAD, which is, again, the turf policy.
I'd like to make a comment on that. There was a lot of research done. Ms. Russo really investigated it, and it's a very thorough policy about temperatures and use of the field, since whether the heat is a certain temperature, or the humidity, how much water, and making sure water is available, what time of day, and all that. And I do support keeping the one that we did put in place as people think about it before the second reading.
And again, the EBADR are really procedures, but I think in this particular case, it makes sense to keep the procedures with the policy. Typically, we separate, but I think, again, this was was a sort of a package conversation with the prior school committee, so I think it was important that we keep the local policy. EBB is first aid, and again, MASC policy is the one that's being recommended. I don't believe there was a Burlington policy. EBBD, the AED policy. And again, Burlington, again, you read my notes, MASC no longer has a policy specifically for AEDs, but the Burlington language was fine. EBC, emergency plans. And again, the two versions were very similar, so I'm recommending the Burlington policy. EBCD is emergency closings. MASC policy provides some guidance when schools will be closed, which can be helpful information for the public to have.
What's all this crossed out stuff?
The crossed out stuff is, if that's the EBC,
The emergency plan.
that's the emergency plan is, again,
You said we were going to keep Burlington.
you're going to keep the Burlington one, so
So-
I'm not sure which one that you're.
Neither am I.
That's the MASC plan. So that's the MASC policy.
Okay.
The source is
And we have a
MASC.
different one?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it, but there's nothing in it.
Um,
Oh, here it is.
yeah.
Okay, I got it.
So it's right there.
Yep.
Okay, emergency closings, sure. I just flip a coin, by the way, so if you want to know, but that's,
Yeah, right.
Wait till you see your evaluation of these snow days.
that's right. That's fine. EBCD, emergency closings, EBCFA, face coverings, basically MASC, Dorothy suggested the MASC version, but she said if at all. So again, that's really going to be, I'm going to call it school committee choice or school committee preference. You don't need to have a face coverings policy. EB.
Excuse me, can we have a comment from Mr. Brooks? Comment from Mr. Brooks.
Madam Chair, I recommend we remove that policy. It's no longer required.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, I'll have that taken out.
And actually, while we're interrupted, on
ED, there was a typo I just want to check in with you about. That's all.
Okay. Not in the
What's the
policy name,
typo?
but in the,
Yeah.
okay.
What's the typo?
It was that the document will record the date of the daily check, something, something, and it didn't, it was like an unfinished sentence or something. I didn't write the whole thing down, but we can look it up.
Okay. Okay, we just finished face coverings, okay. EBCG, policy on reporting alleged abduction attempts. That's a Burlington-only policy. So again, she said we can keep the Burlington policy or delete it. It's not an MASC policy, but because it was Burlington, I'm assuming there's a history there, so we kept it. EC, buildings and grounds management. It's an MASC policy only. Again, inclusion or not is at the discretion of the school committee, so this is a school committee choice, is EC.
And I have a question about that. Since we have a particular arrangement with the Recreation Department, is this relevant, or does it match the arrangement we have with the Recreation Department? I couldn't quite tell. It seemed like it was general enough to include ours. Is that how you felt? So,
Yeah,
okay.
it was really about safe, clean, sanitary, comfortable,
Okay.
sort of. I think it was very general, but again, if you want to keep it, that's great. If not, this wasn't a real issue.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did we ever figure out what exactly our situation is between our custodial staff and rec? Because I don't think you can find it in writing anywhere.
There is supposedly a letter floating around. That's the
Right, but you don't know
mystery
where,
and the
and
myth.
nobody has touched
Well,
it,
I
right?
I think that would be nice to see in writing as well.
So I would like to recommend that this policy, we decide if we want the policy as written or not in our second reading next time, and that we direct Dr. Conti and Mr. Cuna to find that letter, maybe. Is that what I'm hearing?
Or write a new one.
Or write a new one,
Find it.
okay? Which would not be part of the policy manual, but we'd like to know about it. Thank you.
But there's no huge rush on that. We just would like to see.
I'm not sure it exists, but we'll see.
It doesn't exist. Of course it doesn't.
ECA is building and ground security, recommending keeping Burlington.
Do you know where the unknown name is supposed to go? I couldn't figure that out.
I apologize.
Oh, I see it now. The name that they noted at the beginning, it says a name will be inserted near the end of the policy.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that not
Like
there? Do I need
that's
to add
the
that?
shall hold harmless and identify blank against any claim or legal action. I thought it implied a name.
Is that in the Burlington policy?
I believe so. It says note there is a blank for a name to be inserted near the end
there
of
it
the
is.
policy.
Okay.
So is it suggesting we need to add the name, or that's part of the policy? Like, because this is our existing policy, so I wouldn't think there'd be a blank, right?
Right. Well, again, if there's an indemnification, that's typically, you indemnify employees. So I'm assuming this would be an individual agreement. So I can, let me do some research on the blanks.
And perhaps it could be, whereas the school receptionist has the responsibility, we would indemnify staff members who are in that role is a possibility, then we don't have to change the name every time there's a new person in the office.
Talk to Darren.
Yeah. Yes and yes.
I mean, that's like a lot of,
Yeah.
because we don't know who it's going to be. They change all the
Well,
time.
that's why I was thinking maybe a generic
Yeah.
wording might work.
Vandalism, it's only an MASC policy. You can include it or not, so that's school committee choice.
I think your point, though, that if we did have an insurance claim, it could be helpful, so I would
Right.
want people to consider that as we decide if we want to include it or not.
Can I also comment? Because
Yes.
we X out this building and ground security, right? Or it's a MASC policy only that we're not taking?
Yes.
ECA?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have anything currently about the grounds. correct?
You mean who's
None of these
responsible?
policies talk about, well, there's no trespassing in the building and how to keep the building secure. But I know we got a letter from, I believe it was the Fox Hill teachers, asking to keep the grounds more secure. So I didn't know if this policy doesn't seem to be talking about, people on the grounds during school day, like adults walking dogs next to windows or younger children playing on the playground, that type of policy.
So do you like the,
This one
MASC
doesn't seem to
policy?
address it. It calls it ground security, but I think it's more fire and electrical. But is there a no trespassing on the grounds type of policy that exists? So we don't seem to have one. Does MASC have one?
no, you have all the MASC policies. We can
Okay.
draft one if
Okay.
you'd like
If we
to
could
do
put
something
that
like
on a list for the future, I think that's important.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that we not try to word it for this particular vote at our next,
That's fine.
second reading,
That's fine.
but that we put that on the top of the list for when we begin a regular annual review of our policies. That could be on the top of the list of something to be done first, Dr. Conti?
Absolutely, Madam
Great.
Chair and Ms. Pissarro, just so I'm clear, so basically a draft, use of grounds during the school day
Yes,
is sort of
yes.
what you're looking for, yes. Okay.
Because I think we have policies of nobody goes on the, like at the middle school, you can't run on the track during the school day, those type of things. Right, but there's no
There's no
policy.
policy in
And
place,
somebody
right.
asked about a dog policy. We don't have a no dogs on school grounds policy, et cetera. We literally have signs at Fox Hill, but I don't think they're enforceable.
Okay. Security cameras in schools, again, they recommended MASC because it had more detailed information than Burlington's and their ECA. I think video cameras are going to be something that are going to be used more and more, so I think if we need to spend some time on this policy, that I would give this policy some attention, because we're often asked for, to look.
Which one do you want?
On ECAF, security
thanks.
cameras in schools.
Got it.
So again, we're suggesting the MASC policy, but just, that's the recommendation. ECB, Building and Grounds Records and Reports, felt like,
I'm sorry, yes, please, Mr. Brooks.
Dr. Conti, in that policy, can we add language for release and use based on recent activity to help, characterize events that have happened and ensure we have safety within the schools?
We can certainly consider any language, Mr. Brooks. I just want to make sure I'm getting did you want me to use that language in particular, or are you?
No, just something that works towards that, right? So, just again, based on recent events, we're having trouble characterizing, scope of folks involved. Was there larger safety risks that we need to deal with? So if there's a time and place to release that, or back brief it to somebody, maybe have some language in there that speaks to that, so it can be used to help us sort an incident out were it to occur.
When I look at the last paragraph there, it says the superintendent shall ensure
The proper procedures are in place. Do you see that paragraph, Mr. Brooks? And I'm wondering if it is listed in there. It's, from what I'm understanding your question, I think it might be addressed, but if it isn't, perhaps you could share with Dr. Conti in writing later what you would perhaps want it to say. Okay?
so we can do that. So again, ECB, MSBA recommends eliminating. That is the Building and Grounds Records and Reports. EDC, authorized use of school-owned materials. That's an MASC policy only. Again, inclusion is at school committee discretion. So you guys can let me know about EDC. EDE, School Waste Reduction and Diversion Policy. This is a newly adopted Burlington policy, so we wanted to keep that. EEA, Student Transportation Services. Again, it's an MASC policy only, so they recommended adding the MASC. EEAA, Walkers and Riders. It's an MASC policy only. It may be helpful to have, again, this policy in place who's eligible for busing. It's certainly going to be something that we talk about moving forward as we write the specs for our transportation, a new transportation contract. And again, but I think that's up to the committee. EEAE, School Bus Safety Program. It's an MASC policy only.
Do we do that? Do we do emergency evacuation drills?
Yep, we do.
We certainly should.
We do.
Then EEAEA, Bus
Say that
Driver
5 times
Examination and Training. Again, school committee choice. And EEA.
Wait, before we go on, actually, they are, go ahead, do EEAEB, because they're sort of related.
They are
And I have a
related,
comment,
and
I have a comment.
again, MASC is saying it's school committee choice. So EEAEB is drug and alcohol testing for school bus and commercial vehicle drivers. So again, those two policies don't exist in Burlington Policy Manual, and again, it's up to the committee whether to add, again, the bus driver examination and training and the drug and alcohol testing, or one or the other. I know Dr. Chen and I spoke that you did a lot of PD for bus drivers in Louisa. We've done some training for bus drivers. I don't think to the extent, but again, we could. Again, that's for your consideration.
So before you move on for those two, I would be interested in getting input for your suggestions, Dr. Chen and Mr. Cuna, if you feel that without having a policy in place, this has not been a problem, or if you feel that this, if you could, look carefully through the EEAEA and the EEAEB and give us your opinion, give us your feedback, that would inform my decision on whether we should or shouldn't include it, because I felt kind of mixed about it. Thank you, I'd appreciate that.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ms. Bond, sure.
No, in addition, I agree with you. And are there any neighboring communities that you're aware of that are doing drug testing? Or I'm just curious, again, just your opinion on all that too. And on the bus driver examination and training. Not that we have to do what other people are doing, but just curious what else is out there, what else is going on.
Ms. Massardo, did you have a comment? Or, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, we are not drug testing any bus drivers ourselves. They're all drug tested through the existing company, which right now is Trombley. They also do trainings. They've rented or used our space here in the school committee room. There's actually trainings happening tomorrow in the auditorium and in the parking lot. And they do numerous trainings and onboard training for new employees as well, too. So I think we have access to that, and I could share that with the committee as well. But we ourselves don't perform any of that onboarding of the staff of a different company.
Is that in the policy, like when we're write our contract for the bus contract, I assume something like that's in the contract? That's why we don't have a policy on it? Are you aware
I'm
of
not
that?
sure why we don't have a policy on it, but yes, in the contract that we have states the existing conditions right now for the company that we have currently, yes.
Okay.
I don't think it states how many days need to be trained, not to that level, but there is language in there for, I'm assuming, ongoing education and so forth.
Okay,
I think the drug testing is a DOT requirement regardless, so I don't think, I personally, I think this would make sense if we had in-house school buses. But given we contract, it seems a little redundant for us to be making sure the contractor is doing their job. I mean, we should do that anyway, but a policy to do that, I don't know.
I'll review it and we'll discuss it.
Thank you, and then give us your thoughts on it. Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the ones with the long letter names? Okay, Dr. Conti.
EEAEC, student conduct on school buses, recommended that we keep Burlington's. EEAG, student transportation in private vehicles, recommendation that it's not needed, so it's eliminated.
Can I ask a quick question on the bus policy? So I know we had like the conversation about now we don't want people taking away recess for behavior issues. I understand that at some point the privilege of riding in a school bus needs to be taken away, but this basically makes it seem like the only discipline for students on school buses is taking away that ride. And again, you're disciplining the parent or the environment a little bit more than necessarily the student. I'm sure that there can be a cause for loss of school bus privileges, but is there other discipline that can be put into this policy?
Again, through the chair, Ms. Masordo, I think the policy just allows that to occur.
Okay.
But I don't think that would ever be a school or an educator's first step in terms of a progressive discipline. There'd certainly be conversations first. I know Mrs. Ciccolini's here. We do lots of work with students for, right, we do storyboards for students on buses. We practice, we put monitors. There's many other things that we do besides taking the student off the bus, but it is a tool that we need use of, but rarely.
Okay, are there further questions on the student conduct one? Okay.
EEAJ, motor vehicle idling on school grounds. The Burlington version, again, is being recommended. And I can't read my notes. Edit.
Edits.
First paragraph or something. So I'll go back and, sorry, I was moving quickly.
Okay, that was the one where the first few paragraphs in the Burlington policy included the Massachusetts general law. And I think what's being recommended is that we don't need to state the Massachusetts general law, we just need to state our policy.
Right.
And I support that, that we don't need those initial paragraphs. So that's what we would be deciding on.
Yep.
I only see the Burlington policy, which is fine. I can go back and find the MA, that's the Burlington policy. But the no idling except for any of the following reasons, queuing at a school for the purpose of picking up is exactly what we want to not allow idling for. So I think they mean idling while the car is moving, but I would be interested also in exploring tightening this up. I will see if I can find the MASC policy and what their language is. But again, we just put up dozens of no idling signs, and I'd like to be able to enforce those in the fall.
Marion, we have the MASC policy, so we can just get that to Ms. Masordo.
If you are willing, Ms. Massardo, to kind of propose what would be an
Sure.
improvement, that would be great. Thank you.
EEBA, Keep Burlington, and that's, I think, connected through the Green Communities Grant. That's my notes say. EFC, free and reduced price food services, that's an MASC only. Again, it basically commits us to following the regulations regarding free and reduced meals, which we do anyway. And then the meal charge policy, EFD, MASC, and Burlington match. So we'll just keep the policy we have. It'll just be updated from 2019.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Conti. That's section E. That was the longer one for anyone who's still listening. We have a short section F on facilities to review. Thank you, Dr. Conti.
Okay. Again, this is a very short section. Again, first policy is always the descriptor. And again, the MASC version does note a potential partnership with MSBA, so I think it's certainly relevant to what we're doing now. So they considered what I liked about the MASC policy, also relevant to our current situation, is it seems to put more emphasis, as I said in my notes, on meeting educational needs rather than saving money. So I think that was sort of there. So that was FA. FB, facilities planning, Burlington or eliminate. This was a Burlington policy only. I'm not sure it was ever adopted, so it was something that you may want to check out, or Dorothy couldn't find that for facilities planning. Retirement of facilities, again, something else that was discussed. MASC is updated, more detailed, so recommending the MASC policy. FF, naming new facilities. MASC is updated and more detailed, so would recommend MASC. And FFA, memorials, again, not Memorial School, but memorials itself. This is an MASC policy. Again, school committee choice. You can include it or not. Again, there's no local policy. It's just a suggestion. So those are the very short Section F policies.
Thank you, Dr. Conti. Does anyone have any further questions or comments about Section E or Section F before we move on? Okay, and all right. Mr. Brooks is all set? Okay, no hand up, okay. All right, Dr. Conti. The next item is the superintendent's evaluation. I just want to remind folks that the school committee has 3 mandates. One is to set policies, which we are in the process of trying to make sure we have updated policies. The second one is to vote on the budget, which we did this spring, and thank Dr. Conti and his staff for preparing a budget and that we can move forward with that has some really important pieces to it and continues all of our great programming. And the third responsibility of the school committee is to hire and evaluate the superintendent. So, Dr. Conti, I'm going to give you the floor first, and then we will report on our evaluations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I say every year, people get tired of me saying it, is any sort of commentary on superintendent or even superintending is really the reflection of the work of others. And I'm just so fortunate to have, I think, just a talented group of central office staff who work with me every day, and we're so fortunate to have Dr. Chen added to that team. So I'd like to invite, you've been very patient and sitting here, so if you guys could come on up, that would be awesome. Thank you.
And for people who can't see, we're inviting up Ms. Lamprey, the director of EL, and Ms. Ciccolini, the director of special ed, and Ms. Conceition, the director of mental health for the district.
So I just wanted to, because again, I think obviously with the full team in place, there'll be a more formal presentation moving forward, but really wanted to give the committee, again, it's just a very brief presentation on some of the work that we've been doing across the district in regards to equity. I think some of the conversations that we've heard about diversity, equity, inclusion, I think was not stressing enough that it's really what we all do, and it's the primary focus of what we all do. And I think we've made some tremendous efforts and some progress this year, and we need to continue to do so. So this isn't the work of one individual, and I think sometimes that's lost in our conversations. This is the work of everybody, and it's the reason it's attached to my evaluation is it's really, I would say, my primary focus are those aspects of the district, making sure that all students have access and that our outcomes are best for all students at the end. So, Bob, would you mind throwing up the presentation again? It's only 4 slides, so we're not 4 or 5. We're not going to do 50.
Is it 4 or is it 4 or 5?
I think it's 5.
Did you pass math?
I think someone snuck another one in there.
Okay.
I think that's the wrong one, Bob. I shared it with you. That's the 37. Do you want me to share it again?
There. No, yes, maybe.
So thank you. So again, as we do every meeting, the chair reads the equity statement, and you all have seen it. We don't need to go over it, but I think a lot of the work that we are doing is to really try to put that equity statement into action. So we operationalize what the committee and what the conversations that we are having. You all know from our district improvement plan, which we call our planning for success, which is that state process that we follow, that we're really looking at learning, equity, and thriving. You'll see the parallel with the school committee agendas and sort of everything else. And these are the really the strategic objectives in these 3 areas. Why 3 and not 30 is sort of feel like the district that has 30 priorities has no priorities. So we're trying to limit this in a way that makes sense. These are very large buckets, and we can organize, I think, everything that we're doing using this type of language. I do think what I really appreciate about the equity statement is it really has its foundation in kindness and caring, and I think that's going to be a common theme that we see moving forward. So again, from a district perspective, I just wanted to talk about, and you'll see some parallel structure here, student voices, family voices, staff voices, and then community voices. And we're in the process of working to create, and the principals are very involved in this, equity groups at every building. And a lot of them are student-led. So 2 examples that I wanted to highlight for the committee is Francis Wyman has a Voices committee, and that's in 5th grade. And the students run that with faculty support, and they look at DEI issues in the school, and they make suggestions. And I think Mrs. McDonald does a nice job of, again, listening to student voice there. And you all have heard about the advocacy room at the high school that's in place. And so again, students who want to advocate for changes at the high school, there's a facilitator and a process for them to use with advisors. And so those are the types of groups that we want to expand to make sure are available at every school. And again, the examples I'm using may not necessarily be complete. I just want to give some concrete examples to the school committee of things that are in place. But again, student equity groups are something that we want to continue to expand on. I have food services there because the conversation about food services is certainly complex, but the students, there was a student group at the high school that was involved in this very early on, and they took a position, they backed up that position, they did a lot of research. And so that idea of student voice, I think, is something that we're trying to promote. And again, not everything happens as immediately as the students sometimes would like, but we do take that seriously. Equity audit is, we involve student voices in the audit. I just want to, again, make sure that I make a distinction for everyone publicly. It's not an investigation. It's not an equity investigation. It's an equity audit. So it's going to be sort of a view looking at some data and practice, and that will really help us set a course moving forward. But it's not It's not about specific incidences or things like that. So that's what an audit is. And then a school climate survey. So Ms. Concession really took the lead on that, but we had our first school climate survey, which we shared with the committee in December. It's going to be something that we do annually, and that, again, really make sure that we listen to student voices where they get to have an anonymous say in the climate that's happening. Because I think some of the concerns that we have is when we're talking about district initiatives, at some point they really need to translate down and impact the student experience in classrooms and in the hallways. So when we hear students saying that they're experiencing racism, or they're hearing homophobic slurs, or they're experiencing prejudice, we have to take that very seriously, and we have to make sure that what we're doing at the district level ultimately translates down into making that experience better for the students. So I think making sure that student voice is there, especially for our marginalized groups, our Black and Brown students, our children with disabilities, would be our EL students, looking at our student data. It's going to be important that we continue to ask them about what their experiences are and responding to that. Because again, if we have great district initiatives, but we're not changing their experience for the better, then there would be a disconnect there. So again, family voices, we've asked lots of family feedback through surveys, and that's through the school climate and the equity audit. Families were asked to participate in those. And then all these acronyms, the Special Education Parent Advisory, the English Learner Parent Advisory, and Ms. Concession will talk to you about the Thrive group as well. So those are parent groups that meet regularly, that we spend a lot of time with. Staff voices, the access and outcome data. Spoke to the school committee about a lot of work that's happening this year. I want to make sure that I give a shout out to Robin Miliano, our Director of Student Information. We're working with a company called Open Architects that is creating dashboards for us to look at our data, because we have lots of data that we have available, but it's not necessarily easily accessible. So to date, we've created 11 dashboards, and we're looking to do even more to make sure they're relevant. There may even be an opportunity for the school committee to create some dashboards that you would like for getting access to some regular data. So some examples of that would be, we're looking at, we have the Access Explorer, which allows us to look at our access test scores and MCAS test scores by student group. So we can start to disaggregate data based on groups of students, which again allows us to look at access and outcome measures for all different types of students, which is really important. Student attendance. Behavioral incidents is another dashboard, special education, student enrollment, and then we're looking at some combined assessments like at the elementary school, staff attendance, and then we have some student summary data, course grades, and then staffing, retention, and diversity report. So again, I think if it's important to us, we want to make sure we're measuring it to make sure we're looking at progress. And so an example of that would be from what our earlier conversation was in the year, if we're looking at that access and outcome data, if I could just jump down to the new hires. So we had a total of about 90 new hires this year. And we have a new hiring process in place that Joanne Faust worked on with our former DEI director, Mr. Porch, and we implemented it this year. And that's when we have people on interview committees, they have to do an implicit bias training prior to participating in the interview process. And then the intention of this was to try to bring in more staff that look like the diversity of students that are in front of them. So that's kind of what our intention was. And so of the 90 that we hired, I would say this year was our most diverse pool of hires. So again, not perfect, but we're making progress. So there were about 78.5% white of the 90, 4.5% Black, 5.6% Asian, 7.8% Hispanic, and about 3.3% identified as multiracial. So again, we're trying to make sure that if our intention of the hiring process is to diversify, then we need to measure that diversity moving forward. So my assumption would be every fall, you're going to ask me who we've hired, and we should be able to provide not only the numbers of who we've hired but the makeup of those folks. So that's really where the dashboard is coming into play. And I also think that we've skipped over a significant new hire in some of our conversations as well. I've looked historically, and when I sort of look to history, Mrs. Monaco, I kind of have to lean on you sometimes, but I believe Dr. Chen, welcome to Burlington, is the first woman of color in the assistant superintendent role that I could find historically for Burlington. So, so again, thank you for coming to work with us and to help us continue to make this journey. We have external coaches that we're working with, William James University. Again, so we're going to be contracting with William James to help us interpret the equity audit and to make sure that we don't miss anything here locally. The Highlander Institute is the group that did the secondary training at the middle and high school level for culturally relevant instruction. And so those trainings happened all this year. And then the Rebus group, that's a retired colleague of mine, Bill Lapini, who has done lots of training on our evaluation process and making sure that we're looking at classroom instruction, again, that is effective for all students. And then we've also added some internal instructional coaches, and you know this year we have, at the middle school, we have an instructional coach who's has an expertise in DEI and culturally relevant instruction as well. So we're starting to build up the resources and supporting teachers to make sure that their practice, again, we want to make sure classrooms are impacted and schools are impacted so that the student experience can change. Then again, community voices, I want to make sure that in terms of DEI, there are many communities across the Commonwealth that work for decades to eliminate fees that have been incorporated into their budgets, and they're really hard to eliminate once they're there. And so I just want to make sure that we don't take that for granted in Burlington, that ensuring that all students have the opportunity for transportation and that all students can participate in athletics and performing arts without fees is a effort in equity that should be recognized. So I want to make sure that's there. Nicole worked really hard, Nicole Kasha, on a financial assistance policy that's in place. So making sure that, again, all of our great opportunities that families who need assistance can get it if needed. We need to look at all of our programs, summer programming, to make sure that, again, we are not excluding participation. We may need to exclude participation based just on the capacity of the programs, but that's different than excluding based on cost. And so I think we need to study, again, who's participating and is the financial assistance policy having the impact. The new website and the new messenger system, we have to make sure that the information that we're putting out is accessible to all, certainly accurate. And again, I want to give a shout out to Ms. Lamprey and again to Ms. Miliano. We've been using the same messenger system, so the sort of the tired voice you get in the morning with a snow day call. Again, it's a robocalling system, but the newer systems that we are looking at and are going to be implementing, I think, use texting, which is the preferred method of communication for many, and it also automatically translates into languages of the people who identified what their language is. So, because there are many folks who, even if we're making an effort to announce, are missing the announcements because it's not in their primary language. And we've seen the result of that even this year when we piloted something called Reach My Teach, or Carrie did, and your LPAC participation went, it was great anyway, but it went significantly higher because we were inviting people in their home language. So I think that was a measurement that we had there. So with that, I wanted to Jump from the District, again, initiatives, and I am well supported in all of those areas, again, at the central office. So the next slide, Bob, is the English learner. And with that, again, I want to thank Ms. Lamprey and your entire team for all of your efforts this year. And again, your patience this evening, but I'll turn over the floor to you.
Thank you, Dr. Conti. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share our DEI work in relation to our English learner education program. I just want to say that all of our work related to our English learner and multilingual students and families is focused on ensuring their voices are equally included. These families represent diverse countries of origin, language backgrounds, races, ethnicities, religions, socioeconomic status, special educational needs as well. So this is a diverse group within this population as well. This slide shows some of the highlights of our ongoing work. I just wanted to point out a few things that have been happening and will continue to work on throughout next year as well. So under Student Voices, thank you all for your support for our Alternative Academy Day program. Again, thanks to you, we will be starting this program in the fall, and we're really excited to have students registering now for the program. So more to come on that one.
Carrie, just as an announcement too, is that Mark has hired Jill Graham to be the Director of Alternative Programming. So Jill has done great work for the Evening Academy for many years, and so she's going to be directing that program specifically. So again, I think we're really happy that, along with all of our support, that she's going to be managing that program day to day.
Yeah, she's already has a lot of ideas, and she's a great collaborator. We have a teacher as well for the program. Katie Sullivan has moved over from the high school, and we are in the process of hiring an instructional assistant as well. So it's very exciting to see the program already start to grow. As well, we have another new exciting program. Miss Karen Hoyt from Pine Glen and Miss Melissa Parnell from Pine Glen as well. They proposed an incoming kindergarten expedition summer program. So we've always had a summer program, as you could see, for elementary and middle school, and that has grown each year. But they proposed helping our little guys get adjusted to the idea of school. So we've identified multilingual students, because we don't have identified English learners, but students who are coming from multilingual backgrounds have been invited to this pilot program, and they are going to be in the library of Marshall Simons, and they are going to start learning some letters, and they are also going to just get that experience of what it's like to be in school. So I'm really excited to see how that develops this summer. Under Family Voices, our adult ESL classes continue to grow. It's been exciting in particular to see our newcomer class growing, because we have many new families coming into the district, including, as Chrissy will explain, some of our families that are part of our housing partnership with Extended Stay. Every night that we had the class, there was a new family member in the class. So it was very exciting to see them join. And in translation interpretation, as Dr. Conti mentioned, exciting was to see our teachers' connections, direct connections with families increase. So whereas many of our students whose families speak other languages may or may not fall under our program, the challenge was for teachers to directly connect if they don't speak the home language. So using a program that we piloted this year called Reach My Teach, we focused on Fox Hill and we focused on Marshall Simons to train some teachers to use this, just to see how it rolled out. And in only a month, we had 40,697 messages that were sent to families in their native language. And I have to say, our top user was Ms. Fallon Woodbury, our administrative assistant from Marshall Simons, with 110 messages sent and 157 messages received back. So the exciting part of that is families will get a message. And the great thing about this is it's all inclusive. So you send a message, you could send an email in English, let's say, to your whole class. Because it's connected to Aspen, our student information system, the system knows what language the families need. So you don't have to think about it as the teacher. You don't have to go into Google Translate. It automatically gets generated in their language. And then what's neat is the family gets a text or an email, and then they can answer back in their native language. When you, as the teacher, gets it back, it's in English. So you can have that back and forth conversation with families. And as we can see, talk about being inclusive. We're now having ongoing interactions, any teacher can, with any family member. So that's been a really big success this year. And our LPAC as well continues to grow, as Dr. Conti mentioned. We have 20+ languages represented in that group. And I'm not going to have you see it now, but I just wanted to mention that BCAT, Sydney from BCAT came in and did a beautiful mini 3-minute video. And what I loved about it was just hearing a couple of our parents' voices sharing about their experiences. So if you have a moment, that link is in there. Staff voices. We had a district team this year to really help inform our alternative day program. Ms. Conceition was part of that team as well. We were part of DESE's Community of Practice, which is a group from across the state of educators who are trying to understand more about how to work with students who come from limited formal educational backgrounds. So it was great to be part of such a rich community and learn together. We've been doing a lot of PD and training for teachers on working with English learners, including our nursing staff. And we've had some professional learning communities that meet monthly to focus on different topics for our English learner students as well. Community voices, I definitely have to give a big shout out to our own Ms. Rosemary D'Souza, who has really been leading the efforts with our health clinics. Ms. Martha Simon has been there as well. I know it's been great to see you helping out. Thank you.
And I believe Ms. Bond came one evening
yes.
as well, right?
Not to forget anyone. Thank you all so much. It has really been a community effort. We've had at least 51 of our BPS students attend and are then able to either play sports or to make sure that they meet the requirements for physicals for school. And there's some other pieces that we still need to continue to address, like dental. That's coming up as a big challenge for many students who don't have adequate insurance to get dental work done. And as we know, that can affect your health as well and affect your ability to be in school. So we've had some local dentists reach out and really, do some pro bono work and just really donate their time, but we need to continue to address that. Cambridge Street Closet, again, has had many students who are in the high school just go and visit. It's really a nice equity piece as well. It's not targeting one particular group of students, it's all students. And it's
Excuse me, can you back up and tell people who don't know what the Cambridge Street Closet is, what it is?
So again, I have to give a big shout out to Ms. Rosemary D'Souza, who really led this effort. It is located in the high school. And I know Ms. Conceition has been doing work on this as well, and many students have put in a lot of time, and teachers. And so what it is it's a place where there are donations from the community, different clothing, shoes, you name it, personal items. And students can go in. Any student can go in. Families make appointments, they come in. There are many returning customers, I hear, that are going back for more. And so it's become a real resource for the community. And it's brought a lot of families into the school, too, as well.
If I could just add, in my mind, it's like a food pantry, but for clothing and shoes and some personal items like toothpaste and stuff.
Exactly. So it's been a great support for our families. One thing that continues to remain a challenge for us, and we're fortunate we have Dr. Lisa Chen here. Right away, she asked to meet with me to talk about what we could do for a grant proposal, and one of the main areas that came up was transportation. So obviously, if we want our families to be involved in our school and our programs, they have to be able to get there. And I know it seems like Burlington's not that big of an area, but when we talk about families not having a means of transportation, we have been leaning on BYFS, who has been donating vans to get our families to our adult ESL classes once a week. They've provided Lyft as well. Cards for like an Uber type service, and Uber cards have been donated as well. But oftentimes those are challenging when there's not an internet availability and getting parents comfortable with the technology. So Dr. Lisa Chen is going to be helping or leading the work in writing a grant so we can hopefully provide additional transportation to school events and extra events for families and to ensure they're able to participate. And then just finally, the food pantry as well, has been wonderful in helping some of our newest families who have come to our district and, are in need of support for food. So these are the collaborative efforts. They are I have them here under the English Learner Education umbrella, but they really go across departments. The three of us here, as you can see, we work closely together because there's a lot of overlap, as you'll see in a bit. But they often go beyond the school work day. So your staff members here are spending their time outside of their paid time to do a lot of this work for our community members. But we want to really just ensure that all our students and families feel welcomed, supported, included, valued, and most importantly, heard. So thank you.
Thanks, Bob. The next slide, and again, Ms. Concession.
Good evening. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about some of the social emotional learning and mental health initiatives that we have undertaken over the past couple of years and this year to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of our schools. So we have been running evidence-based mental health groups in our middle school and high school for several years now. This year we did add a bilingual group for our high school Spanish-speaking students. That group was run by one of our newly hired school adjustment counselors who is bilingual. And I have to give a shout out to Ms. Lamprey because it really was a collaborative effort in ensuring that group was able to occur, and the teachers in that program also helped immensely. We also work with several agencies, one of which had an embedded counselor that is also bilingual for our students in grades K through 5 in Spanish. Other outside providers that we worked with this year include Cartwheel Care. That is a telehealth service that we piloted through a grant funding. It offers mental health services in multiple different languages. We received 50 slots. I don't want to say I'm happy to say, but we did fill all 50 slots. And we utilized it for grades this year for the middle school and high school. We're expanding that next year to go down to grades 3 and expanding it to 100 slots. And again, it's a service that is telehealth, however, is open in multiple different languages and provides support to students and to families. We continue to work very closely with Burlington Youth and Family Services. They've been a huge support to myself and to all of the students and families and residents of the school. They come in to our health classes, they come in and work with our students one-on-one, and they're very, very good to us about helping in times of crisis and helping families find support. We also continued our partnership with Leahy Behavioral Health, so we have a clinician who comes in again to provide in-school supportive services. The reason sometimes we work towards in-school supportive services is that it eliminates other barriers that families may run into in obtaining services outside of school, such as transportation, childcare for other children, many different reasons. We continue to work with McLean, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in some of our other slides. And we have a relationship with Family Counseling Associates, which embeds counselors in all grades, K through 12, for our students. Next year, I'm excited to say that we are moving forward with piloting a evidence-based SEL curriculum for all students in grades pre-K through 5. We have dedicated, in addition to our morning meeting time, a 45-minute SEL block. So all of our staff will be receiving professional development on that SEL curriculum. It was a large group effort of teachers, administrators, counselors, specialists, parents who looked at multiple different curriculums and selected one. So we're very excited about the curriculum we selected and excited to start that pilot work and that professional development next year. Under Family Voices, Dr. Conti spoke. This year was the first year of the Thrive Committee. It was a committee of parents and guardians from all across the district who came together a couple of times this year, about every other month, to talk about the social, emotional, and mental health needs of the students across the district. They helped and looked at the strategic 3-year plan. They helped with some of the SEL curriculum suggestions, and we're looking forward to continuing to work together next year as we start to pilot the SEL curriculum and start to pilot with other agencies as well. We have continued our partnership with McLean. We've had a partnership with McLean for several years in different avenues. One of the things that the McLean partnership does offer is parent-guardian workshops. So those are virtual, but we do send out information and letters to parents as the workshops come about. They're going to continue those workshops next year, and I'm excited to say that Cartwheel Care is also going to be offering parent-guardian workshops next year. Topics have ranged from stress management, ADHD in your child, all the way to more serious topics for some of the more upper age children. Again, we have a large network of behavioral health partnerships, and a lot of those partnerships also offer family supports. So although we're targeting and helping the students, I just want to note that those partnerships and those clinicians have frequent contact with our parents and guardians, offer parent support sessions, and frequently involve them in sessions with students. For our staff voices, we've continued with McLean. McLean offers us monthly consultation models. They've been working with our middle school and high school teams now for about 10 years. And we are working next year. We're going to expand that, include a elementary team, as we've onboarded several new school adjustment counselors. Thank you very much. So we will be working with them on all levels next year. This year, we were also accepted into the DESE's Social Emotional Behavioral Academy. It's a 3-year academy. We were selected as one of the 21 schools across the Commonwealth to participate in the academy. So there is a group of teachers, of social workers, school counselors, myself. We meet with representatives from DESE. We're working on our multi-tiered systems of support, and we have a coach. In addition to that academy, we are also accepted to the Trauma Cohort Academy as one of 23 schools across the Commonwealth, working to embed trauma-informed practices in our schools. So next year, as we move forward, we're looking to enhance trauma-informed practices and professional development for all staff around that. In regards to community voices, as Dr. Conti stated, we did do a school climate survey this year where we asked for feedback from students, staff, and parents and guardians. We also worked very closely with several different agencies, state agencies and local agencies, one of which is called the Housing Families, to help with supporting and including families that moved into our extended care stay. So we have families who are still there and have just moved in as frequently, I believe, as last week, and we're expecting more families to continue to be living there and placed there next year. So we're going to continue work on that partnership with them to ensure that those families and students have all their needs met and are enrolled in school and feeling supported. And then we had our second official community mental health book club. So this is year 2 of that. We had 3 books this time. It was run in collaboration with the Burlington Rotary and the Burlington Community Library. And I'm excited to say we had some good participation and conversation. It was very nice to meet other members of the community and who enjoyed being part of the book club.
So again, lots going on, and we're not certainly not standing still. Mrs. Ciccolini now will talk about special education, which again has been talking about inclusion for
Forever.
many years.
So just as like a retrospect, when I started here in terms of our programming, we really didn't have much programming. We had a couple of sub-separate classrooms in one elementary school. We had one sub-separate classroom in our middle school and nothing in our high school. And so when, as the years went, we decided we've been able to expand our programming to make sure that we are able to keep more of our Burlington students in our community here through our Burlington Public Schools. So we have recently just expanded our programming this past year at the middle school for our DSC, which is our developmental skills classroom for our autistic population. We also worked with Lab Collaborative to keep our medically fragile students in the community, and we've also have been doing the Unified Basketball Program, which is in its second full year, which has been great for the kids to participate, both general education and special education students. In regards to Family Voices, we, through the CPAC, which I've been meeting with almost every other month, listening to their feedback, again, through their own meetings, we have decided to put the accessibility policies and procedures for all after-school programs and activities. You've probably noticed on some flyers for different things like our musical, for example, about accessibility features. Also, after every team meeting, I send home a survey to get family feedback about how an IEP team meeting went. In regards to staff voices, we have, along with the partnerships with McLean's, we have partnerships with New England Center for Children and with Landmark, which also has embedded professional development. So they're not only consulting with us, but they're also providing the professional development within either the classroom or through small group instruction with our educators. We were fortunate enough to take advantage of Woburn strike and have social thinking professional develop come to Burlington, where we were able to take advantage with our staff to participate and work with those experts, along with having the community be able to participate in the Burlington Auditorium at the high school. And this past year, and it will continue on into next year, I have expanded our training in Orton Gillingham. So we've trained 13 new special educators from the elementary, secondary to get high quality reading instruction. We'll be looking into providing more professional development in reading to get more people trained into specialized programs to make sure that we're having a comprehensive reading program in our special education programs. Through Community Voices, we have the Special Olympics that we partner with Lab, and also we partner with Wilmington for our in-district and out-of-district special education students. And that's a collaboration also with regular education student partners. We've expanded our ESY programming to Simons Park. So last year we piloted a program for our social emotional students who needed more of that social skills training. So this year we have been able to expand it to offer it to more students, where they are receiving not only their instruction for regression, but also exposure to more typical peers and the unstructured environment of, play. And then also with community day trips, so our programs at the middle school and at the high school partner with Lab, and we go on community day trips, whether it's going to BJ's, whether it's going to restaurants, whether it's going to CVS to purchase needs. They are able to put together a plan and implement that plan when they go out on these community day trips.
Thank you, Bob. Just the last slide, and then I promise we'll turn it back over, is the,
You said it was short.
It was
only
short.
4 slides, but there's so many, no, it's not a criticism. It's that we have so many programs that we're doing and so many services and that we're offering and so many staff who are doing such important work with our students, so thank you.
so I just sort of wanted to sort of talk about just this last slide, and I think it was mentioned, is that although there are some distinct programs, everything works together because it's all connected, and everyone sort of make sure that they're communicating and collaborating. So the point of basically this presentation is to say there's certainly a lot going on. We're certainly, again, excited to bring Dr. Chen in to make sure the collaboration across all of these areas continues. But if there's a message tonight, it's that English learner education is DEI work. Social emotional learning and mental health is DEI work. Special education is DEI work. And we just have a lot of new programming that's happening this year, and any one of these things would have been a significant effort and accomplishment in a year. And these folks have just worked so incredibly hard. And so I just wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to speak about all that they're doing. And again, we're going to be adding a curriculum review process to this as well, with the again, additional resources that and expertise that we're bringing on. And so, so I know sometimes we have incidents that make it seem like nothing is being done, but there's a lot being done. And we're still going to have to deal with the incidences anyway, because that's the world and community in which we live, and we're going to have to continue to address those as they come and move forward. I'm hoping a lot of this work will allow us to be more proactive and less reactive, but we're still going to have some things that we need to react to moving forward. But again, these folks have done just an incredible job, and I know that they have very talented people who work with them, and they would want to extend again that gratitude to their respective teams as well. So thank you all for spending a Monday night out here in late June, but I really do appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions before they leave?
I have a quick comment.
Ms. Monaco?
So this is his evaluation, right? So what's the saying? Behind every successful man is a great woman. Well, I think there are several great women behind the successful man.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do.
Mr. Brooks, did you have anything you wanted to say before they leave?
No, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, yes, I am very impressed. I know a lot's going on, and I learned more tonight of the things that are going on, and it's really quite a dedicated staff. So now I will be reading to you a synthesis of the individual, each of us, all five of us wrote an individual evaluation of Dr. Conti. It's based on a state Department of Education's elementary and secondary education requirements for evaluations of superintendents. It parallels the evaluations that we do for all teachers and administrators, and there's a rubric that they put out with it. And so we are tasked with individually evaluating Dr. Conti, and as chair each year, the person who's chair synthesizes those evaluations. The way I did it, which is probably the way other people do it, is I averaged the checkoffs that we had, and then I included some of the information from each individual's narrative text. So the first section in the evaluation is to assess progress toward goals, and there's a professional practice goal that Dr. Conti has that's listed in our plan for success. Should I read the goals, or no? People can look that up, I guess. Okay. It's gotten late. The professional practice goal, as an average, Dr. Conti met this goal across the five of us. For the student learning goal, he met the goal. And for the district improvement goals, which are also in the planning for success, he did meet the goals. Yeah.
Martha, would you mind, like, just saying, you know, how many of whatever's?
That would take a very long time, but I
Then
could.
never mind.
I could.
Okay.
There was a difference of opinion. I can say most people were in the needs improvement to exemplary. Yeah, I guess there were no scores outside of, the categories are a little different in different sections of the evaluation. So one of the sections say did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met, and exceeded. No one felt that he did not meet any of the individual objectives or goals. There were a couple of some progress, a couple of significant progress, and mostly met and exceeded. For another section of the other sections, it was only a 4-point rating, and it was unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. There were no unsatisfactories. There were a couple of needs improvement, and there were a lot of proficients and a number of exemplaries. So now I will take all that and tell you what the averages were. Okay? Does that meet your, yeah, that was good. Thank you for pointing that out. So overall now, for the 4 standards that we were assessing him on were instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. For instructional leadership overall, he was proficient. For management and operations, he was exemplary. For family and community engagement, he was proficient. For professional culture, he was proficient. And for overall, he was proficient. So, I mean, if you don't need the details, he was a good, solid proficient that people were satisfied with him. The narrative for this section, for the overall, that again I took from each of the different people who commented. Dr. Conti is a strong, dedicated educational leader who keeps things in perspective while maintaining a calm, thoughtful, and kind manner. This year, while wearing many hats, he ran the Burlington Public Schools effectively and successfully. He handled our many crises with grace, professionalism, and a positive outlook. Among other things, he expanded special needs programming, initiated specialized reading and language-based training for many staff, continued DEI work in the district, and developed a sound fiscal '24 budget. Members expressed concern about setting clear and measurable goals for district-wide achievements, for measuring, tracking, and reporting outcomes for the Plan for Success objectives, and for improving communication in the district. Dr. Conti always seeks new, more effective ways to promote excellence in all aspects of the district and keeps abreast of best practices. So, as I mentioned earlier, the student learning goal was met, the professional practice goal was met, and the district improvement goals were met. This evaluation tool repeats some things here, as you can see. So under instructional leadership, there are a number of categories. So for the average, for curriculum, he received a proficient in all areas of instructional leadership. That includes curriculum, instruction, assessment, evaluation, data-informed decision-making, and student learning. And there's a lot of specifics under each one of those that people can look up if they need to. The narrative for this section is that instructional leadership strengths that were noted by school committee members are Dr. Conti's consistent centering of what is best for our students, his setting high expectations, his staying informed of new evidence-based instructional practices, providing resources for staff, and his intelligence, honesty, and compassion. Concerns noted were an apparent lack of consistency across elementary schools, a need for more focus on measurable instructional goals with annual success benchmarks, and a need to focus on catching up with unfinished learning in core curriculum areas. A desire for an integrated, organized professional development plan under the new assistant superintendent was mentioned. The next section is management and operations. For the objective of the environment, he received exemplary. For Human Resources Management and Development, he received Proficient. For Scheduling and Management Information Systems, he received Proficient. For Law, Ethics, and Policies, he received Exemplary. For Fiscal Systems, he received Exemplary, and the overall rating for Management and Operations was Exemplary. The comments for this section: Dr. Conti does a wonderful job working with the financial and facilities teams. He steps in to help solve problems. We have made progress in terms of diverse hiring, with 20% in the fiscal 23 group of hires. He will need to continue this work and follow up with the hiring processes and retention efforts. The budget process is communicated well and done thoughtfully, although there may be potential for streamlining the process. Including a new alternative academy to meet the needs of non-traditional students in the fiscal 24 budget addresses an important issue. There is some concern regarding the number of meetings and trainings for which teachers are pulled out of the classroom. We are glad that the crucial school building projects have begun. The next category is family and community engagement. Under the first objective of engagement, he received a Proficient. For Sharing Responsibility, Exemplary. For Communication, Proficient. And there's a split in the page here. I want to make sure I get the right one. For Family Concerns, he received Exemplary. So overall, Dr. Conti received a Proficient for family and community engagement. Comments were that Dr. Conti makes great efforts to communicate with all stakeholders in the community and makes himself available to talk or meet whenever he is asked. Under his leadership, the district has committed to ensuring families are welcome and also to have full access to communications, whether it is by providing translation services or making our website accessible to all. He is attentive and empathetic to family and community concerns. The last category is professional culture. For commitment to high standards, he received Proficient. For cultural proficiency, he received Proficient. For communication, he received Excellent, Exemplary. For continuous learning, he received Proficient. For shared vision, he received Exemplary. And for managing conflict, he received Proficient, with an overall rating for professional culture of Proficient. And the comments are, Dr. Conti continues to set a positive tone for the district and to provide immense support for the teachers and staff of Burlington Public Schools. He does a good job managing conflict. There is some desire for more of a cohesive focus on a single direction and approach to create more consistency district-wide. We look forward to Dr. Chen joining Dr. Conti as Assistant Superintendent and helping him with the vast and crucial job of running the Burlington Public Schools. I want to thank all the school committee members for their thoughtful evaluations. And we are not going to go later tonight. We will be going into executive session to discuss his contract. But at this point, is there anyone who would like to add something to the evaluation on the committee? It was pretty thorough, I think. All right. Thank you, Dr. Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, if you choose to do what I do for a profession, Burlington is a great place to do it. So thank you for the opportunity. And of course, I just have incredible staff who do just really great work. So I want to make sure I extend the thanks. And Nicole Kasha, who's online, is a part of that team, as is Bob. So thank you both. And again, really excited to have Lisa join us. So again, I'm looking forward to making continued progress. But thank you all for the opportunity to work here.
Okay. So moving on to the next agenda item under Facilities and Finance. The first item is the Fox Hill School Building Committee update. We had a lot of conversation earlier. I did want to add that there's been a lot of contention around the project, and people have very real concerns. I want to point out that I think we all are on the same side when it comes to being excited about having this opportunity to build a new elementary school for our children, regardless of whatever the outcome is of the choices that we make. And I hope that we, although I feel sometimes we've been off to a rough start, that we are aiming for transparency. We are trying to consider all the options, trying to hear everyone's voices, and I hope that we can move forward in a positive way to end up with a building and a program that's good for the students of Burlington. Are there any other comments? Dr. Conti, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just through Ms. Massardo and Bob, I know we have some meetings coming up that I want to make sure we announce. So Wednesday, the 28th, is our next school building committee meeting. Is that at 6 o'clock, Bob? So, and that is going to be here and online, so it'll be a hybrid meeting. And I know people said there's been a lot of repetitive information, but my understanding is that there's going to be some financials presented. So again, I think that would be an important meeting for people who are interested in this topic. And again, that's Wednesday, the 28th at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Through the chair.
I believe BCAT is recording them and then reposting these meetings. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that.
Yep.
And so I think that's happening. And then there are then some other community meetings. Again, I don't want to steal your thunder, but those will be announced coming up.
July 11th is the next community meeting. I believe the flyer is going to go out. It was supposed to go out today. It's going to go out tomorrow. And we will feel free to share it. The July 11th, it's virtual only at 7 o'clock. There'll be a flyer. It's already on the town website. Again, that is virtual only. It will be recorded. And by BCAT, there's a YouTube channel for the school building committee anyway. All of the BCAT recordings are there. But that is the next community meeting. And then there is a planned community meeting for September when we are closer to making a decision and we have received all of the information. The September meeting will be the town hall style forum where everyone can get up and say their 3 minutes. But yes, the two important dates are this week, Wednesday night, and I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks. July 11th is a Tuesday. That's the community meeting.
Ms. Massardo, I know in the communications working group, we spent a lot of time talking about how can we get the word out to more people. Can you just review the ones that you can think of off the top of your head? And if other people think of ways to communicate with members of the community that we maybe haven't found a way to reach, please send an email to whoever, Ms. Massardo, Mr. Cuna, somebody on the school building committee. So, Ms. Massardo, can you just review the ones that we remember?
I'm sure I might be forgetting.
Yeah.
We will send out, I believe it is not an Aspen Blast anymore. It is a Reach My Teach. So all the family emails in the district will get it. So current students. It's posted on the school building committee website. It's posted on the school website, which is linked from the town website. We also, this time, are sending the flyer to every EEC licensed childcare in Burlington. So all the childcare will receive the flyer. The senior center newsletter will get it. BCAT gets it. It should be posted to Facebook. Generally, the PTOs pick it up via Facebook. It might be harder, it being summer. Trying to think. I think some folks are literally putting up, I think we were going to put one in Schoolhouse. I have reached out to the library. So anywhere that folks feel like a cohort of, there's going to be a robocall. Dr. Conte, I believe you already recorded the robocall, so that will go on July 5th. So whatever, reverse 911. I'm hopeful that that's going to increase the awareness quite a bit. Yes, feel free to email me if you feel like there's another way. Also, feel free to share the flyer however you would like. Once the flyer is out, you can print it, you can post it. I think last time I put it on the library, there's a bulletin board on the second floor in the library. But we definitely want the whole town, again, the whole town has to pay for the project. And all elementary schools will ultimately be impacted in one way or another. So we don't want folks to see the flyer and say, oh, this doesn't concern me. So I think that's our biggest challenge right now. If you feel like you haven't heard enough, we have a website. You can follow the website. There's a place to submit questions on the website. We update it with, I think somebody asked what happens with the public comment. We are updating the website. The OPM is working on addressing the questions that were asked in public comment and getting those updated to the website. So if you feel like there's another way to move the flyer around, feel free to ask me to do it or send it around yourself.
Ms. Bond?
Yeah, did it get rolled out to all town meeting members as well?
Yeah, Amy will get it and send it to town meeting, yes.
I did not expect you to remember every single one, but most of them. That was pretty good. Mr. Cuna, do you have anything to add for the Fox Hill item? No. Okay. All right. The next topic is the Burlington High School update. Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to see if Nicole is still out. Nicole? I might have muted her.
We spoke briefly this morning about the timing
for getting the once the SBC is formed, and I think in general it's formed, we need to send some formal invites, but we don't need to wait for the MSBA to sort of approve anything, so we can move pretty quickly. And the RFP for an owner's project manager for a feasibility study, we discussed sort of a summer, early fall release. I just want to make sure I'm not messing up all the other. So again, Nicole will be putting that together. And again, what will expedite the process is, if you remember from Fox Hill, we had to get approval from the MSBA. We'll be utilizing their process, but we don't need their board approval to move forward. So once we put the RFP out there, either the high school building committee or a subset of the building committee will select an OPM, and then we'll have a parallel process sort of moving forward. But I think we'll be able to move quickly once we have someone on board, again, because we don't need MSBA approval, and we're not bound by their the timing of their board meetings. So even though I think their process is really good, so we're going to borrow as much of their process as we can, but continue to move forward. So Bob, I'm not sure if there's anything else to add right now, but
again, through the chair, at the last meeting we had discussed, again, like what Dr. Conti mentioned, following the MSBA's template for the SBC committee and a lot of other processes throughout. Mark Sullivan, the principal of the high school, has made some recommendations, and assuming that we are going to use the SBC's or the MSBA's template, there are some predetermined ones which we've discussed in the previous meeting. Again, superintendent, school committee members, the local chief executive officer, and so forth. So those ones we have in here, and if you all want to either make the recommendations and or vote on it, the existing members that Mark is proposing, I can submit those to you all. I can submit the whole form to you all, or we could go member by member and then make a vote on those, however you choose to be the best option. But I can submit the proposed member list to you all for review.
Through the chair, why don't we put it on the July 18th agenda, and then you guys can sort of see it in writing and take a formal vote on July 18th? So that would be awesome.
Makes the most sense. Thank you.
And I also, it occurred to me that if we're going to be putting out an RFP and looking for a selection committee, as we did on the last one, perhaps, Ms. Bond, if we could perhaps have after we get the school building committee members set, that maybe we can call a meeting before the RFP goes out or around the same time as the RFP goes out, so that we'll be ready to do that selection process with the SBC members. So that's my suggestion. So, any other comments on the BHS School Building Committee? All right. Moving on to the next topic.
Again, Madam Chair, the Pine Glen update is a standing agenda item. And again, I think the existing school building committee, we've expanded membership. MSBA, I think I got an email that was maybe shared, has approved the expansion of the SBA. So
That didn't have the Mr. Lyons on it, so it's not.
It's not
I
correct?
have an email out to Christina.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll check that.
I think they're just behind.
Okay. But we'll check that. But again, I don't have any other updates on Pine Glen. Bob, anything?
No. Anyone? Oh,
But again, that will
okay.
remain a standing agenda item,
Mhm.
so we continues to stay on the front.
Anyone else have any other comments? No.
front
Okay,
corner.
thank you.
Again, summer projects update. Bob is
Exceptionally busy during the summer.
Bob, you're exceptionally busy during the summer. I saw the summer cruise. The cruise started today. Everyone was in, I noticed. And then you have other projects going on, from the expanding offices in the lower library to what else? Again, you have a lot.
Yeah, so this is a fun time of year. As most of you know, the warrant articles get appropriated. Thank you to town meeting for that in May, but then not technically available till July 1. So with school just getting out a little bit early, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, our crews have been able to get in and start demoing some areas, prepping some areas, and also our custodial staff is getting in to start cleaning rooms and preparing areas earlier. That being said, we're doing a lot of ordering, a lot of vendor meeting right now to prep for some of those larger projects. Some that we are handling in-house, as Dr. Conti mentioned, would be a construction project in the lower library at the BHS. That would be constructing 3 offices. So we're working with the building department right now for confirmation and the Board of Health. But that looks like it's a go. Meeting so far in the process, we've been having positive luck, which is always the plan with any building project. Working on numerous bathrooms throughout the school department in multiple buildings, just to resurrect them and bring them back to life, especially BECC. And again, like I said, a lot of projects right now, we're waiting on materials to be ordered July 1. So it looks like July and obviously August are going to be busy months. So
Air conditioning at the middle school?
we don't have the large unit fixed right now. We have 14 temporary units in there. So we have the main office, nurse's office, guidance, 2 in the cafeteria. We have 10 classrooms set up, and then 2 portables in the library. So not cold, and we've been having mediocre to decent weather, so that's been helpful to us so far. But the plan is still to repair the large system. That's really just scheduling conflict right now. So I'm targeting maybe a July 10th date, but again.
But it's not up to you?
No. So in the meantime, let's pray for sunny days, but maybe mid to low 70s, and the air conditioners that we have in the spaces that we have in the middle school. And then I'm hoping miraculously that there's some schedules that free up and money that falls off trees to give us a fair price on the middle school project. So, yes.
Well, thank you for your optimism, Bob. All right, anything else on those projects? Is there any other business to come before the committee now? So the school committee does have a need for executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school district, and chair so declares, which I do, regarding a BEA contract issue. We will also be voting on the superintendent's contract. We will be returning to public session for the purpose of voting on Dr. Conti's contract in public, and then we will be adjourning. Mr. Brooks, we want to arrange for you to join that meeting, so if you and Mr. Cuna can coordinate that, that would be great. And I will take a motion to go into executive session.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? No. Mr. Brooks? Aye. Ms. Monaco?
Aye.
Ms. Bond?
Aye.
Ms. Massardo?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. That's 500. We are now in executive session.